If it's Angeline, she'll just be like, let him out. I don't know.
Angeline, exactly. Um, who?
She got my vote.
Oh, yeah. I'd probably vote for her. All right, doing it with my bro.
Can't believe I nearly posted that on Facebook. Doing it with my bro live on YouTube.
Doing it with my bro. Keep eye contact.
Who, me and you, or just with the
No,
audience?
that's what he said in the skit.
Oh.
You always got to keep eye contact
Oh, when
with
you're
your
doing it,
bro
when you're
while
doing it
you're
with your
doing
bro,
it.
innit?
Yeah,
I see, I see.
you
Is this
lock
like the?
hands.
This is sounding very like the business hugs that's on Tim and Eric.
Kind of. It's a lot more erotic.
There's nothing more erotic than Tim and Eric. Feet, Jesus,
All right, you guys like Tim and Eric
who doesn't?
and the Greasy Strangler? I'm gonna
Stop,
watch that again. I forgot about that.
stop talking about. You've mentioned the Greasy Strangler to me about 50 times this week. I'm bored of hearing about this film. I've seen it once. That's all you need to do. Doing it with my bro.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Checkity check. Take out the paper and the trash. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back. You did that so American. Oh my God. Take out the
Yakety
paper
yak.
and the trash. No way. We have servants to do that.
Take out the paper and the trash.
Oh
Yakety
my
yak.
God.
Sounds like that's a California voice right there.
Yeah, that is.
All right. Checkity check. Okay. How's your levels? Is your level sounding good?
Hello, hello. Yeah, nobody was complaining
Sound all
before.
right to me? All right. Good evening. Welcome to Sick and Wrong, the world's source for antisocial commentary. I'm one of your hosts, E. Simon.
Put on your tinfoil hats. I am the ghost of RFK. Not
It's
really.
cracking there.
Ghost
Kate
of
Rambo
RFK.
/ Ghost of RFK. I don't know where that came from.
I'm clearly the ghost of Bobby Kennedy. Can you not tell? I have that Massachusetts. I really like clam chowder. And yeah, I died before my time. Can you not tell?
I couldn't, but I guess I could see that. You change your name on the Zoom to Ghost of RFK. So
Yeah, so that means it's true, right? That's the internet. If you type it on a chat in the internet, it's now a fact and it's common knowledge.
well, your name was Glenn Danzig before, which I didn't believe either. So
I will
Ghost
go
of
back to
RFK. I'll
being.
go with that. I'll go with that.
I will be back to Danzig before you know it.
So how you doing there, Kate Rambo? I know you were sick recently. Did the explosive diarrhea settle down? Is everything back to normal with the GI?
I did not suffer from that ailment like
I
you.
thought that's what the problem was.
No, I had like a weird. Basically had nearly every COVID symptom, but I didn't have the COVID. I was just absolutely
Ah,
exhausted. I had 2 days where I slept for 20 hours, which is insane. And then another day where I actually ended up sleeping for 22 hours. Just like
you
flat
know,
out as well. Didn't wake up at anything.
you were telling me about that, which is insane. I don't even know if I've ever slept for that long.
I think I should be studied by medical science.
Well, I think you might have KLS.
What is that like what's that band who did Justified in Ancient? The KLF. Justified and we're ancient. Do you know
Oh,
that
I know
song?
that song. Yeah, but I
Yeah, the
don't know the rest of
KLF.
them. No, this is KLS, Klein-Levin syndrome. You ever heard of
What?
that?
No, not now. Until
I'm
now.
thinking, I mean, obviously I'm not a doctor. I'm not trained. I've never really been educated, any kind of medical training,
But you're on the
but I
internet.
have the internet.
Yeah.
So I'm a professional. Klein-Levin syndrome here. People who have this experience recurring episodes of prolonged sleep, hypersomnia. In most cases, patients sleep 15 to 21 hours a day during episodes.
I can easily do that though. Like easily sleep for 15, 16 hours.
Excessive appetite, hyperphagia,
What's hyperphagia? Is that excessive
excessive
appetite?
appetite. Yeah.
I don't have that.
Unusual cravings are present in half to two-thirds of cases. Were you just saying you were craving, what was that? Like
Hash
chips or
browns.
something? Hash browns from
Hash browns
McDonald's.
are
That's
not chips, D.
okay.
Simon. They're a different thing.
All right. All right. But what I'm saying, that's an unusual craving.
True.
You
It's
know?
quite a
Okay.
general craving, though. I think everyone wants McDonald's hash browns.
Half of the patients experience dramatically increased sexual urges, hypersexuality. I think that
Well,
applies to you.
I
I
am a
think the
northern
audience
slag.
agrees. You're a northern slag. You've had like 30 abortions. I would say,
At
yeah.
least.
Some other symptoms include marked changes in mood, cognitive ability.
That's
I can
true.
see that one.
Yeah.
Derealization can happen, severe apathy. That's
Yeah.
about
Oh,
80%
I've got
of the
that.
cases.
Definitely got that.
Some patients experience hallucinations or delusions.
Not yet, but let's hope. I would like that.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. Well, you never know. It's not. This is just kind of like this is the range of the gamut of symptoms here. Some individuals usually, when they're in the state of KLS, they can't remember what happened during the episode. So they might wake up, they might have headaches. Some even act very childlike during these episodes, and they found that a lot of people who suffer from KLS are prone to hypnosis. So they have a suggestive type of psyche, so they're prone to actually being able to undergo hypnosis.
I've always said I would be able to be hypnotized because I can lucid dream. And if you can lucid dream, you're pretty much like one step below being hypnotized. But I've never wanted to go and do it because it's always those jokesters who make you like pretend you're sucking off a ton of men on stage and then everyone laughs at you.
Well, I was about to say, like, we were talking about this the other day. I found maybe on Patreon or the outtakes or something about like being hypnotized. Have you ever been hypnotized?
No, because I'm scared of it because I don't want to like have a whole room full of people laughing at me while I'm pretending to be like a dog shagging a chair. That's not my idea of a good time, bro.
But I'm saying, have you ever been hypnotized by like a therapist or anything like that, or a doctor or anything like that?
No, I've never, but I would like to go and be
Or a
hypnotized by a
friend.
doctor. Yeah, from all my hypnotist friends, all my magician friends that I hang
Yeah,
out
but
with.
no one's ever tried to do it with like, like a necklace or something with like a bauble on the end of it.
Everyone has tried to hypnotize themselves. Like we've all done it with like our spare 5 minutes free after we've like been saying Candyman into the mirror 5 times. We've all done it, but it's never worked.
I'm thinking eventually when COVID's done, they open up the country, they open up our borders. I'm thinking we should do a sick and wrong excursion to Las Vegas where Anthony Cools, he's a adult hypnotist, and he puts on a very entertaining show. We could see if he could hypnotize you.
This is what I don't
Capture
want.
it on film, $10 Patreon level.
This is what I don't want. I don't want like 500 people laughing at me.
I wonder if that would work on you.
I think it would, because I'm like one step below being able to be hypnotized.
We went there. I know I talked about this on the show a while ago because it was a while ago, but it was my sister's friend's 30th birthday. I forget why we were there, but we were all there. We went to see the show Anthony Cools. Like, yeah, it was Sarah Kessler's 30th birthday. That's what it was. Sarah's mother bought tickets for everybody, and we all went as part of her like birthday thing. And the hypnotist guy was walking around and he would like look at you and he could tell just by looking at you whether or not it would work on you.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he pointed at Big Jerry. He's like, you up on stage. And I was just like, we goaded him like, come on. Let's just see if this would work. And Jerry went up on stage and oh my God, it worked like a charm on him.
And he did.
Yeah. I know he like convinced him that like when he'd walk over and put his microphone on his shoulder, he convinced him that was like a 13-inch dick. And so Jer would like get all weird because he was like, the guy's putting his dick on my shoulder. He's getting all like creeped out by it. I forgot. He also like had him at one point like doggy style fucking a chair.
See, this is what I don't want. I don't want to be doing that.
It'd be hilarious.
I'm too British. I'm too straight-laced. I would never want to think about it ever again. That's why we have you Americans, so you guys can do stuff like that.
Yeah, there was some. He had this one girl convinced that her vagina was giving like these dirty secrets away, and he was like, well, every time he said like the word Snapple or something, and then the girl would turn bright red, and he'd be like, "Would you shut that thing up?" Like, but I mean, they know. Like Jer said, he knew what he was doing was weird, and not necessarily wrong. He just knew it wasn't didn't make any sense. But he said he felt compelled to do it.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so Kate Rambo, there's a reason to my rhyme here. This week, a lot of people are probably read the news. After 16 tries, Sirhan Sirhan, the man who assassinated Robert F. Kennedy, was recommended for parole by the California Parole Board. 16 tries. He's been incarcerated for 53 years
Right. Okay.
since 1968 when he assassinated Robert F. Kennedy
It's
here in
about the
Los
same.
Angeles.
Yeah, Bobby Beausoleil has been in jail about the same amount of time as well.
But he's tried 16 times, and finally now he's been recommended for parole. He didn't get parole, but he's been recommended for parole. It's up to the governor. But what's kind of odd about it is that Robert F. Kennedy's two of his sons support the release. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And what's his other son's name? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. definitely favors a release, and the other Kennedy, I forget his name. I'll get to it in a second.
Well, I'm their
Uh,
ghost dad. I'm quite proud of them for being so forgiving. I should visit them in their
But
sleep.
the thing is, though, there's a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding the assassination of RFK.
Oh
A lot of
yeah.
people think, and including Robert F. Kennedy Jr.,
Oh.
Kennedy's own son, feel that Sirhan did not act alone. They feel that there were nefarious forces controlling him.
Oh, is this going to turn into an Oliver Stone film?
Well, I'm just saying,
Yes.
everybody knows about the JFK assassination, the Zapruder film, the grassy knoll, and all that. But a lot of people don't even really think about Robert F. Kennedy.
Which I think's a real shame. I was saying to you, I think on the outtakes, that I actually listen to his speeches a lot, especially the mindless menace of violence. I listen to that to get pumped up. It's one of those speeches where it's very evocative. And I think had he lived, you can never say things might have changed, but I think he would have made a real impact.
But I'm same with his brother. I think he would have followed in his brother's footsteps, actually. It was Douglas Kennedy. Douglas Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. both think that Sirhan Sirhan is an innocent, but they think he should be released. And they wrote to the parole board recommending that he be released from prison after 53 years at
Oh,
age
wow.
77. Yeah, but not all the Kennedys agree with this. There's like 6 other siblings that are just completely against it, but we'll get to that in a bit. So California Parole Board this week recommended that Sirhan Sirhan should be granted parole, mainly due to the impassioned pleas of 2 of Robert F. Kennedy's sons. Let's get a picture of Sirhan Sirhan here. He's a 77-year-old man, and he's definitely there he is. There's Sirhan Sirhan on the right, what he looks like now. There's what he looked like back in 1968. And right smack in the middle is Robert F. Kennedy. Who is it? Do you think Robert F. Kennedy was the most attractive Kennedy?
To me, he is. Like JFK is ginger and he wore a girdle and he was always in a
He
bad
did have a
mood.
girdle, didn't
He
he?
wore a girdle. I'm not going to be like Marilyn, but Marilyn Monroe, she also said that her favorite Kennedy was Bobby. I think Bobby's just there's something kind of sweeter about him. I think he would treat you a bit nicer. JFK was a bit of a hound dog.
He does look like just the all-American, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Just
he
kind of
did.
like an all-American type of guy here. Go to the second picture. So here's a picture of classic Robert F. Kennedy running for president, or he's a presidential candidate. He
Was.
probably would have won definitely at that time. And the third picture is the 3 brothers there, JFK on the left, Bobby in the middle, and Teddy over there on the right. Do you
Teddy's
recall?
a murderer, so
Yeah,
this
do you
is
recall
another
the
reason.
Chappaquiddick incident there?
Yeah, this is a reason why I don't count Teddy as the most handsome of the brothers because he's a murderer, and I just don't want to like have a dick from a murderer put inside of me.
He also has like look at that. It's like he has like no upper lip. Like he's like, ah,
That's true. They
you
don't,
know.
for the American royal family, I think they could have been more attractive.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of inbreeding going on there. But this
Oh yeah.
guy, This guy drunk driving, like wasted with a woman with like his girlfriend or something, goes off a bridge and they drown. He somehow escapes, claims that he dove down like 6 times to try to save her, and then just like went
Mm-hmm.
home.
Yeah,
Didn't even call the
Teddy.
cops.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Got
Left the
away
scene
with it.
of an accident. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think he got like, I don't know, like 20 hours of probation or something like that. A probation and 20 hours of community service. He basically got a slap on the wrist, but that's because they're the Kennedys. So out of these three dudes, you would choose the middle. You
Yeah,
choose Bobby over
Bobby.
there.
Yeah, Bobby, he's kind of dirty blonde as well. He's not ginger and he's not dark. He's like a dirty blonde. He'll do fine. He'll do just fine.
You wouldn't do a Kennedy gangbang, a
In the
Kennedy cocky.
Well, I think Marilyn Monroe would have. She'd have
She
been up
probably
for
did.
all three of them. Definitely
Well,
two.
Sirhan shot the guy in the middle there. He killed the former Attorney General, Senator, and presidential hopeful in Robert Kennedy in 1968 at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. Kennedy had just delivered a speech following his victory in the California's Democratic primary, and then that's when he was assassinated at the hotel. The Ambassador doesn't exist anymore, but it was located right across the street from one of my favorite bars in K Town,
Oh
the HMS
wow.
Bounty. Yeah, HMS Bounty is a great. I love nautical themed bars,
Oh, so it's
and
not like the Queen Mary. It's not a ship. It's just a nautical theme bar.
it's a nautical theme bar.
That's
Yeah, it's not a
hilarious.
ship, but and it's great. It's like owned by like some old Asian people, and you go in there, and it's very divey. They have decent food, like kind of pub food. But the Ambassador used to be right across the street. But they, I think in like 1989, they tore it down. Or no, they tore it down. They closed in 19. The hotel closed in '89, and they tore it down in 2005. And now it's like 6 public schools. Robert F. Kennedy Community Schools are in that location. So Sirhan, full name Sirhan Bishara Sirhan. I love that his parents are like, we're gonna name your first name the same as your last name.
There's something kind of lazy about it, but at the same time, it does make for an iconic name, doesn't
I
it?
kind of like if Simon was my middle name and D was my last, it'd be like D Simon D, like DD.
DD. Well, DD is obviously DD
It's a
Ramon.
great
We all
name.
love him. But like
It's a great name.
Simone Simon, Paul Simon. I'm going off on a tangent here.
Sirhan though is a cool. I always liked that name. I never really thought about it. It was just like I guess I never really even thought that Sirhan was his last name. I just thought his first name was Sirhan. But yeah, his whole name is Sirhan Bishara Sirhan. He served 53 years in prison. He's now 77 years old, and he has long maintained that he has no recollection of the killing. Doesn't remember the assassination at all. He remembers the
Really?
night. He remembers parts of the night, moments, but he doesn't remember the actual like assassination.
Oh, they always say this, don't they? I was there, but it wasn't me.
Well, at the virtual proceeding in front of the parole board, he said he's learned to control his anger. He's committed to living peacefully. He said that Senator Kennedy was the hope of the world, and I harmed all of them, and it pains me to experience that. The knowledge for such a horrible deed, if I did in fact do that.
Oh, that's like O.J. Simpson. You remember when he released his book, If I Did It?
If he actually did
Yeah,
that.
if I did it, was it me? Like, oh, come on. This would be if I was his parole board member, I'd be like, oh, if you did it, staying inside because you did it. But you're going to tell me
Well,
how he
he's
might
because
not
he
have
has
done
no
it.
recollection of it here. So Douglas Kennedy was a toddler when his father was killed. He told the two-person board panel that he was moved to tears by Sirhan's remorse. He says he's overwhelmed just by being able to view Sirhan face to face. Dougie, this guy shot your father.
Killed
Well,
your father, who is
yeah,
was the hope of the new world.
murdered your father, but yet you're overwhelmed to see him face to face. He said he lived his life in fear and fear. He lived his life both in fear of him and his name in one way or another, and he's grateful today to see him as a human being rather as a criminal. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has actually researched like for decades into the murder of his father. He also supports Sirhan's release. In a letter to the parole board, he said that he met Sirhan in prison in San Diego when he was in San Diego, and he was moved by the killer's remorse. He wept, he clenched his hands, and he begged Robert F. Kennedy here for forgiveness. Paul Schrade, who was an aide to RFK, was among 5 people who were actually wounded in the shooting at the Ambassador. He also spoke in favor of Sirhan's release. So, there's a lot of people here that support releasing Sirhan after 53 years. Like, do you think people can be rehabilitated?
Well, that's the entire point of prison. But I think the difference here is that he maybe should not have gone to prison at all. I think he should have gone to the nut house. It's not okay to me. I think when we get into it later on, you'll see why I think he should have gone to the nut house. But you're not supposed to be sent to prison to rot till you die, unless you're somebody like the Green River Killer who's doing 300 years consecutively. If you're there with the possibility of parole, you should have a parole at some point. And he is 77, although I would love it if he came out of jail and just shot someone.
As soon as he got released, just go
yeah,
shoot
bang bang. It would be great.
I can recommend a few Sirhan. Just some Marjorie Taylor Greene, Rudy Giuliani. Oh, he's not a politician, but you can shoot him too. This hearing marks Sirhan's 16th attempt at securing parole. At the last hearing in 2016, they determined that he did not show adequate remorse. He also didn't understand the enormity of the crime. That was only a few years ago.
Yeah.
He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death, but that was later commuted to life when they outlawed capital punishment in 1972. So a lot of scholars feel that the assassination of RFK is perhaps the most ignored American historical milestone in the second half of the 20th century.
Yeah, because it's not as famous as JFK, but
I think it was overshadowed by his brother.
Oh, yeah, completely. But it's definitely something that did change, like a counterculture movement.
It's a milestone, though. It's a milestone assassination. It's up there with JFK. It's up there with Martin Luther King. It's like these are like huge, assassinations in that change history. But yet, not much is known about RFK. And I mean, I gotta say, I didn't really know all that much about the assassination either, or like a lot of the conspiracies surrounding it till I kind of like went into it this week. Watched a couple documentaries, some great documentaries actually out about that. Two major films, historical fiction came out about it. I think Bobby, directed by Emilio Estevez.
Oh wow!
You see that one? Yeah, it came out in like I think it was the mid-aughts. So RFK here, the 42-year-old younger brother of assassinated President JFK, was U.S. Attorney General from 1961 to 1964, and he was elected to the U.S. Senate to represent New York in 1964. So at the time of his assassination, he had just won the 1968 Democratic presidential primary election in California and was regarded widely that he was going to be the next president of the United States. But that dream kind of went out the window with Sirhan Sirhan.
Bang! It went up with a bang, didn't it?
Yeah, that went out with a bang. So the assassination took place shortly after midnight. It's kind of a late party here on Wednesday, June 5th, 1968, as RFK was walking through a crowded food preparation area known as the kitchen pantry of the Ambassador Hotel on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles, California. The alleged assassin, Sirhan Sirhan, was a 24-year-old Palestinian, a non-Muslim. He was a Christian, actually, with Jordanian citizenship. He was one of 77 people in the pantry waiting for RFK to pass through on his way to a press conference. When the senator entered, Sirhan pulled out an 8-shot 22 caliber revolver, pointed it at the senator, fired 8 times. He was immediately seized by bystanders, wrestled to the floor, and turned over to police when they arrived. So we got a few pictures here of the actual murder. I think it's pick 4, 5, and 6. So here's yeah. So here's the famous murder. There's RFK shot laying on the ground. I think he might even be dead at that point. Looks like he has like one eye closed, one eye open.
Yeah, it didn't take. He didn't die in the hospital, did he? He died there. You know,
Ye-
JFK actually survived for quite a while. JFK was he died in Parkland. He didn't die instantly.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not sure if he died there, if he died later
I think
on.
he died at the Ambassador Hotel. I think that was the other difference, was that it's weird that JFK basically had half his head blown
Yeah, head
off.
blown
Yeah.
off, yet he
He
still lived.
still, yeah, he still lived up until in Parkland. I think he was in about half an hour inside
I
of
think there's
Parkland.
one
This
more,
is
and
one of the
there's
famous pictures from Life magazine.
yeah, there's a famous photo of him just kind of being like,
What
"Yo,
the
I've been
fuck?
shot." Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
dude,
like
bro.
WTF?
Yeah, dude,
Don't
why you
tase
doing,
me,
man?
bro.
I'm
And
against
then
violence, man.
here's a picture of 22-year-old Sirhan getting arrested.
He
Kind
looks
of looks
so
like he's
young here. You would
yeah,
never know he was 22. I'd be like, that's a 16-year-old.
kind of looks like Anthony Kiedis or something. Kind
He's
of.
attractive. I'm not going to say. I think he's
Yeah,
good
not a bad
looking.
looking guy.
Yeah.
6 people in the pantry received bullet wounds. 3 bullets struck RFK. One lodged in his spine near the neck. Another bullet exited his chest. And a third bullet, the fatal one, entered his head. And a fourth bullet passed harmlessly through his clothing. The 5 other victims were shot non fatally. Sirhan's California state court trial for the murder of RFK began on February 13th, 1969, and ended 2 months later on April 17th when the jury found him guilty. The trial imposed a death sentence, or the trial judge imposed a death sentence, reduced it to life imprisonment by the California Supreme Court in 1972. And incarcerated now for 53 years, Sirhan is still serving that sentence. Um, so the official government version of the RFK assassination, this is a stated view of the FBI, the LAPD, and prosecutors in the LA DA's office, is that Sirhan was the lone assassin, that Sirhan fired all the shots in the pantry, and that there is no conspiracy whatsoever.
This is also the view I am taking.
So, according to the official narrative of the assassination, therefore, a single assassin acting alone slew RFK. Now, that's the thing, though. I mean, you think about JFK; he was in a moving vehicle, like driving, down like in the parade or whatever. Um, to shoot him would be a little bit more difficult because you're not going to be able to run right up the vehicle and shoot him point blank.
Yeah.
Whereas RFK was just walking through the pantry. Obviously, it doesn't sound like anyone like frisked anybody. So anyone, in theory, could have walked up to him point blank and shot the guy in the head.
That's true, but that could happen with anyone at any time. Look at Jill Dando, for instance. Do you remember Jill Dando?
No,
This might be too British for you. She was a news anchor reporter, and she got shot on her front doorstep, just putting the keys in her door. So
was
anyone,
she famous?
yeah, Jill Dando. She was like on I want to say Crime Watch, which was a big
Okay.
British thing over here. But you don't have to
But
have
what I'm
massive
saying,
security. Anyone can shoot. This is going to get us flagged, but anyone can shoot a president if they really want to.
well, I'm saying it can be more difficult. I think now it'd be a lot more difficult. But
Than back then.
with JFK, watching that, looking, I would assume, I could believe, like, yeah, look how difficult this shot is. I mean, this guy's driving a car, and I could see conceivably that there could be more shooters. But with RFK, it's like a lone assassin easily could have taken that guy out. I mean, shot him
And
point
did.
blank. Yeah, well, maybe. But for people, many people, one in particular, Lisa Peace, who wrote a book called A Lie Too Big to Fail that came out on Feral House in 2018,
Good
and
publisher.
assassination researcher James DiEugenio. They've scrutinized the facts surrounding this RFK assassination, examined the quality of the official investigation that happened afterwards, and they think that it all lacks credibility. They said there's glaring weaknesses, particularly in the no conspiracy contention. They feel that there's major discrepancies between the official account and the actual evidence. The official probe of the murder was substandard, and they feel it amounted to a cover up, which isn't, beyond disbelief. I mean, the
Oh
LAPD was
yeah.
very corrupt,
Oh,
especially at that
completely.
time.
My tinfoil hat is on, D. You're opening up my mind right now.
There's ballistics and autopsy evidence establishing the existence of a conspiracy. So let's get into it. So just examining a few different ones. There's like probably 5 major ones, but there's some like, I don't know, glaring inconsistencies. Like I mean, even myself, like I'm a skeptic by my nature. And just reading it, I'm just like, I don't know. It gave me pause. Several things gave me pause. So let's look at the ballistics evidence. This is part of the conspiracy. So Sirhan's pistol, when fully loaded, held 8 bullets, had an 8-bullet cartridge. Evidence that more than 8 shots were fired in the pantry conclusively proves that there was more than one shooter, hence a conspiracy. I mean, Sirhan didn't have an opportunity to reload his weapon, but there were definitely more than 8 shots that were fired.
How was there definitely more? Tell me.
Police recovered 7 bullets from the bodies of the 6 victims, concluded that an 8th bullet, which was not recovered, was lost in the ceiling inner space. Yet there were at least 2 bullets in the pantry's doorways, as well as, according to police, an unbelievable number of bullet holes in the ceiling panels. At least 10 bullets, almost certainly several more, were fired.
Was that not by the police, though?
The police weren't shooting anyone.
Oh, the security guards?
Possibly. Possibly other gunmen gunning for RFK. The evidence of conspiracy from the number of bullet holes is not a new thing. But the author here, Lisa Peace, re-examined police and FBI photos of the doorways and that were pierced by the bullets. And she argues that at a bare minimum, there were 12 bullets had been fired in the pantry. So he had a gun that could shoot 8. So 4 more shots were definitely fired. So more than 8 shots. And there were definitely more than just one lone shooter.
How do they know that these bullet holes have not just been there forever upon ever? How do they know that they were fired then? And like, is there pictures of this? Are there definite proof that they tested it and said that it's the same type of bullet or it's a different type of bullet?
Well, they don't know what kind of bullet. I think they probably saw that there were like, these were fresh, marks of a, bullet.
So they're marks. They're not bullet holes. They're just like marks that they're looking at in a grainy picture going, that looks like a bullet hole to me.
Sirhan's attorneys at his trial ignored the bullet holes issue. They were aware that there were many bullet holes. I mean, this isn't a police report. The police reported this.
Okay.
And so the attorneys the attorneys knew about this, but they ignored it because they were trying to avoid the death penalty for a client that they believed guilty. And they stipulated throughout the trial that, they stipulated things throughout the trial to basically say like, the prosecution's often is giving questionable evidence, but they were really trying to like go the, the mental health route to try to avoid just having a, death penalty conviction. So they kind of discounted that there was questionable evidence basically being put forth by the prosecution. After Sirhan's trial, but before his appeal, the LAPD secretly destroyed the doorways and the ceiling panels of the hotel. Maybe because they want to go with the lone gunman theory. You don't know. And then since then, the hotel has been raised, so we'll never really know that.
Well, we won't really know ever.
So there's one conspiracy. There's one. All right. I'm not trying to convince you with just that one, but let's look at the autopsy evidence.
Let's do this.
Unlike JFK, his assassinated brother, RFK received a first-class autopsy whose results are trustworthy. Renowned medical examiner Thomas Noguchi performed the autopsy. So here he is. Here's Noguchi.
I have talked about Thomas Noguchi a lot in Overkill. Pretty much every week I mentioned Thomas Noguchi, and here he is.
Coroner to the stars here. Chief medical examiner for Los Angeles County from 1967 to 1982. Dr. Thomas T. Noguchi saw the best and worst of LA. Movie stars, gangsters, rock stars, politicians, victims of serial killers. Just to name a few, Sharon Tate. He gave her an autopsy. Natalie Wood, Robert F. Kennedy, Janis Joplin, John Belushi, and probably the most famous, Marilyn Monroe.
Here she is.
Yeah.
In situ.
There's Marilyn Monroe on the autopsy table here. So his report and Noguchi's trial testimony reveal, 1, all 3 bullets striking RFK were fired from behind him. And 2, the 3 bullets had been fired at point blank range. The muzzle distance was very, very close. The fatal bullet was fired from a firearm 1 inch from the edge of RFK's right ear and 3 inches behind his head. Sirhan could not possibly have fired these 3 shots. He was in front of RFK and never came within 4 or 5 feet of him.
I would like to say, as much as I admire Dr. Noguchi, and I talk about him a lot, he's not right all the time. He's made mistakes. He made mistakes in the Marilyn Monroe autopsy as well. He's also not, I'm going to say, a ballistics expert. So he can...
Yeah, but he might have consulted with people in order to...
He could have, but that's not his job necessarily.
Yeah,
it's
but
his job to theorize.
Well, possibly, but I mean, he probably, after years of training, he probably could tell if a shot was fired at point blank range and which direction the shot was fired from.
Oh yeah, he can. But like I said, he's made mistakes in the past.
But it's suspicious that there are 3 shots point blank range that came from behind Robert F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
Contradicts the lone gunman theory, but going along with the strategy of not disputing his guilt, because his trial lawyers were like, this guy confessed, he's guilty, we're just trying to spare him from the death penalty. They disregarded the autopsy evidence. So they disregarded the ballistics evidence. They disregarded the autopsy evidence. Well, now we look into another part of this conspiracy. I mean, it's a webbed conspiracy. The police cover up and the CIA here. So the LAPD investigation of RFK's assassination was oddly botched, to say the least. Definitely looks like a bit of a cover up. There were many suspicious circumstances that were ignored. There were many leads that were not pursued. A dozen or more unknown people in the Master Hotel who had acted suspiciously were never even identified. There are witnesses with no reason to lie who gave plausible statements suggesting the presence of other gunmen and other people were urged to change their story and treated coldly or completely dismissed.
I always say this in this case. Eyewitness testimony is worth nothing. You get laughed out of court if you take in eyewitness testimony and nothing else, because people have different views and you remember things different. What's that? There's an old Chinese proverb where it says even the palest ink is better than the best memory, because things warp in your mind and change. So I would
memory's
never
subjective,
and memory is totally subjective.
But at the same
especially
time,
in a situation like that.
If you're an investigator, don't you want to hear from all the witnesses just to kind of like see if there's consistencies or see if there's correlation between what people see?
Yeah, if you're a good investigator. But at this time, there was a lot of corruption and they weren't being paid very well. So if you're not being paid very well, you're not going to do a good job.
Or maybe they were being paid well.
Ooh, but by whom?
To destroy
David?
some evidence. That's the
Dun,
question.
dun, dun.
So there are questionable statements given by people with reason to lie were accepted right at face value. Like there are certain people that are like, really? That you weren't even there. It's like, oh, okay, no, we're gonna take that at face value. That is the gospel truth, and that's what we're gonna put down in our report. Our written witness interview statements were altered. Over 3,400 witness interview tape recordings destroyed. No one even knows where they went. Oh. There were transcripts of undestroyed witness interview tapes that did not correspond to what was actually on the tapes.
So that, you're basically saying that they've molded it.
They've falsified data.
Yeah,
they falsified data. Crime lab experts tampered with evidence. There are fake test results. Over 2,400 photos were incinerated. Physical evidence, like I mentioned before, the doorways and ceiling panels of the ambassador, the pantry in the ambassador, were also destroyed. And the crime lab could not match any of the recovered bullets with Sirhan's pistol, his 22.
I hope this is all getting to the ultimate question of, yes, we're building an idea that it is a conspiracy. But my question is, why do they want RFK dead? Because at the minute, to me, from my knowledge of Sirhan Sirhan, I know why he wants RFK dead. But why did the CIA want him dead?
Well, Sirhan Sirhan claimed that he was upset about RFK's relationship with Israel, and that was during the the whole Israeli-Palestinian war. So that makes sense. But the agency, the CIA, and CIA working with the LAPD. I was about to get to that. The agency may have feared Kennedy because he opposed the CIA's expansive use of power. And they fear he would press the agency for answers in the assassination of his brother that had happened 5 years earlier. And
We're
there's
not going to
ample
get into
proof.
that.
There's ample
Don't say
proof
it.
that many CIA people, high and low, particularly the ones involved in CIA assassination plots, which there are many, there have been many, and illegal covert operations. Also, there have been many of those. A lot of them hated and despised both Kennedy brothers, almost to the point of insanity. In the 1950s and 60s, the CIA was deeply committed to murdering people without being detected. So the CIA was sketchy. I think they
CIA
even kind of still are sketchy.
The CIA is sketchy, yeah. But the CIA did not kill JFK. There is literally no other evidence of anyone else but Lee Harvey Oswald killing RFK. We're not going to get into that today.
With
This is
JFK, but we're not going to.
JFK. I'm getting
We're
confused.
talking about
No.
RFK here.
Yes.
So what's weird about the whole thing with the LAPD and the CIA is the CIA at that time, and probably still do, had secret relationships with a lot of police departments across this country. They provided, gratuity money for officers training and free equipment, often of a weird nature, exotic nature. Police returned the favor to the FBI by conducting surveillance and break-ins for the agency and providing police credentials to CIA operatives. So it was almost like a quid pro quo kind of thing going on, with the LAPD and other police departments throughout the country with the CIA. Documents obtained under the Freedom of Information Act specifically mention Los Angeles as one of the cities that received quote unquote CIA training.
City of Sin.
And so, this leads the author of this book, but also several of the documentaries I watched to purport that the CIA was involved in and perhaps even orchestrated an LAPD cover-up of the RFK assassination. Now, this was new to me because I had never actually heard of this guy, but there's a connection to Howard Hughes and a man named Robert Maheu. And they claim that there's a theory, and we're going to get to these. This theory is there's Robert Maheu. The theory is that RFK's assassination was a result of a conspiracy organized by that man right there, Robert Maheu, and the CIA. And the actual murder was carried out by a secret team of undercover operatives as part of a covert operation arranged by Maheu.
This is when I just start to just be like, no. It's like the simplest answer is usually the right one.
The Mission Impossible TV program is believed to be based on that man.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Maheu was a wealthy lawyer and clandestine espionage activities specialist who owned a private security firm, similar to like Blackwater. I don't know if you remember Blackwater in Iraq. He was extremely well connected at the highest realms of power in the country. He was an ex-FBI agent and an ex-CIA employee with ties to some of the most secret, top levels of the CIA. After he left the agency, he continued to perform assignments for the agency, meaning he would carry out somewhat questionably legal tasks for the CIA to which so they would not be linked to it. Maheu used one of his companies to front for CIA activities and provide cover for CIA agents. One in particular, when CIA leadership decided to recruit the mafia to murder Fidel Castro, they turned to Maheu to introduce them to Johnny Rosselli and other gangland leaders because he had connections to organized crime.
Just like the Kennedys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know what happened with that? The CIA reached out to Maheu. There's a memo actually that came out, the Freedom of Information Act here. So Maheu enlisted West Coast mobster Johnny Rosselli. Rosselli organized a meeting for Maheu and a top CIA official with Sam Giancana of Chicago and Santo Traficante Jr., the former mob boss of Cuba. CIA records show that Giancana suggested using a friendly contact in Cuba to poison Castro and the CIA provided him with pills of lethal high content. But Castro suddenly changed restaurants, and the pills were never actually deployed.
So close. It's like when Hitler nearly got bombed, but he didn't.
Yeah, so close. So now, from between 1955 and 1970, Maheu worked for the Hughes Organization, the business empire of legendary, reclusive, multimillionaire Howard Hughes.
What
I love
happened,
his.
Howie? What happened to you? Yeah.
Look how mental he is in the right in the picture on the right there.
Oh, he was always wackadoo. Even in those days when he was like getting the starlets and building their careers, he was wackadoo with them. I'm
What's he
surprised
wearing
he
for shoes
actually
though? Like tissue boxes, Kleenex
tissue
boxes.
boxes. Do you know who would have hated this coronavirus virus panic? Howard fucking Hughes. You've been like,
Yep.
I'm right all along.
One of my favorite things about him too. Look how long his fingernails are.
Oh, disgusting, minging.
Yeah,
He
he's
lived in a
mental.
basic bubble where he had like pure oxygen pumped in. So he would have been high as a kite all day long.
Well, so in the early late 50s, early 60s, the Hughes organization was loaded with CIA people, and practically was even run by the CIA. Maheu was the right hand man and close confidant of Hughes. And during this time, Hughes was buying up like swaths of land in Las Vegas and was financing a lot of the CIA operations. Hughes, by 1968, Hughes had moved from Los Angeles to Vegas, and Maheu was his front man. They bought the Desert Inn, numerous other casinos. Maheu moved into a mansion called the Little Caesars Palace, where he entertained senators, celebrities. He had a yacht in Newport, Rhode Island. He flew around the world in Hughes's jets. At the same time, during this time, the CIA was engaging in programs, clandestine programs, often financed by Mr. Hughes here, such as Bluebird and Project MK Ultra, which we
Here it
mentioned
is.
before.
Yeah.
We mentioned this before, but these were tests on unwitting people to see whether their minds could be manipulated by drugs, torture, or hypnosis. And college, hospitals, prisons, they all participate in this project, with the CIA hoping to be able to manipulate foreign leaders and other figures, or convince people, use mind control basically to get people to commit acts of espionage. So in the 50s and 60s, Maheu and Hughes, the CIA, Maheu, and the Hughes organization were all kind of linked. And what's interesting about it, the person who wrote the book here contacted the CIA to ask about it. And they acknowledged that Hughes did finance some operations, but wouldn't go into any kind of detail about it.
Of course. But Hughes had his hands in everything. He had stuff to do with the mafia too. I think when you're that super rich, you can afford to have your hands in many pies, as they say.
Well, so the conspiracy theory is now that Maheu would have had access to the CIA's like MK Ultra experiments that were being conducted at the time in California and in Nevada. The theory states that this could have enabled him to frame Sirhan Sirhan as a patsy for the slaying of Kennedy, while other gunmen actually fired the fatal shots. So they say that Sirhan was almost a Manchurian candidate. He had been hypnotized, to distract Kennedy. He had a gun firing blanks because they never recovered any. The bullets that they recovered didn't match what was in his gun. And he was a distraction from the actual gunmen who shot Kennedy from behind. I mean, witnesses said they saw shredded paper fluttering through the air as the shots are being fired from Sirhan, indicative of casings containing explosive charge but no bullets.
I will take whatever. Again, I just don't credit witnesses with like jack shit, especially in situations like that where it's busy.
Other witnesses claim to have seen multiple gunmen. High school student Lisa Ursu, who was in the pantry when Kennedy was shot, said she saw a blonde young man in a gray business suit place a revolver in a holster under his jacket when Sirhan began shooting. And then she saw a dark-haired man in a black business suit fire a handgun into the ceiling and run away from the scene.
Well, that could be security guards. Do you not think the security guards, as soon as they started hearing shooting? I mean, this is America, baby. As soon as they start hearing shooting, were they not just
Pulled
like
out
going
their
trigger
guns.
happy and started shooting themselves? To me, that is just explained by security guards doing it. But because
Well,
we've lost a lot of testimony through time, we can't speculate about that anymore. I mean,
well,
we can only speculate.
the wife of author George Plimpton, she said that they
Oh,
saw a gunman behind Kennedy. One of those was an armed security guard named Thane Caesar, who was actually there as security for Kennedy. Um, Caesar previously worked for Mulhue in Los Angeles as part of his security firm. We're going to get to him in a minute here.
okay.
So, I mean, you ask why would they want Kennedy out of the picture? I mean, I think Kennedy was a threat. I
RFK,
think
do you think he
Kennedy was a
was?
threat to the establishment. He
How?
was a threat
He was a Catholic. How was he a threat?
because he was a Democrat. He was a Democratic candidate who was unifying people, and I think he was just going to change what we've commonly what how this country was currently running. He was going to change the establishment. He was going to change the order of things. He was probably, I'm sure, he was going to look into the CIA's abuse of power.
Yeah, he maybe was, but this seems to be like an awful lot of work leaving behind. To me, the CIA, if they're going to be intelligent, you leave behind not a trail. This seems to be a very convoluted trail they've left behind of
Well,
like
I
very
think,
recognizable figures.
but it worked out really well for them. I mean, they're able to cover up this assassination.
Well, it hasn't worked out well because to me, if you're going to work out it well, then we would never know about it as normal civilians. We'd be like, we wouldn't even question it, would we? But here are all the questions. So this is why I think the CIA don't really have an involvement, because if they did, I like to think they've got their noggins screwed on a
I
bit better.
I don't know. I don't think any government agency, is that like reliable and that thorough. I mean, God, look at the fucking IRS.
Well, that's
Um,
nowadays, but I mean, back then, before the glory of the internet and all of this, I just think they would have done a better job. And
I
it's
think
like if
maybe
they
back
killed
then
it,
people didn't. I think back then people didn't question. I
they were
think they
like,
didn't have
"No,
reason to question.
Timmy, let's just
Yeah,
get on with it, Timmy."
yeah, I think people took like, oh well, that's what the police say. That's fact. I think people after the Kennedy assassination, after the RFK assassination, after some of these other experiments like MK Ultra and things where people were finding out about, people were like, wait a second, there could be something going on. I mean, MK Ultra was a thing that the CIA did.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like the CIA was alone in that. Every governmental agency with their freaking the
But
MI5,
that's what I'm
all of us
saying.
have been at it.
That's
Yeah,
what I'm saying. It's like, the Bay of Pigs pissed off a lot of people in government.
that's true.
What happened in that whole situation, I think, caused a lot of bad blood with the Kennedys, both of them. And so I think they perceived John and Robert as a threat,
Do you
and
not think
as
the
a threat.
mafia would have something to say about it, though, considering how ingrained the Kennedys were with the mafia? Well, maybe it was a mafia thing. And maybe it was the mafia all along, because if anybody keeps quiet, is the fucking mafia. I'm going with the
Now,
mafia did it.
the question is, was Sirhan Sirhan, a victim of MK Ultra? Was he hypnotized? Was he a hypnotized, a
Slave.
hypno-programmed assassin?
All glory to the Hypnotoad, Sirhan Sirhan.
Well, that's the way the conspiracy theory goes here is that Sirhan was hypnotized to be present, to use a gun as a distraction from the second gunman. So even as Sirhan was being captured, seconds after shooting Kennedy in Los Angeles, he was acting weird. A group of men had tackled him, held him down, tried to wrest the gun out of his hands. But in the middle of the hurricane of sound and feeling, wrote George Plimpton, the author here, Sirhan seemed kind of peaceful. Plimpton was actually struck by Sirhan's dark brown and enormously peaceful eyes. I think he looked really scared there.
I think he looks scared, but also in shock too. In shock, you can never judge what anyone's going to do, ever. People act differently in shock.
So here he is being manhandled by police. An LA police officer who had rushed in recalled that he had a blank glass look over his face, like he wasn't in complete control of his faculties. At the same time, the short diminutive Sirhan here, he was only 5'5", about 120 pounds, exerted superhuman strength as one man held his wrist to a steam table in the Ambassador Hotel pantry, firing off 5 or 6 more shots, even as he was held around the neck, body, and legs by other men. It doesn't seem possible. It also took half a dozen men to even pull the 22 out of its grip.
Look at all these men, though. These are all 1950s, 60s men who like to smoke and we like to drink, and I won't eat no vegetables.
But I mean, 5 guys in this little. I mean, this dude's like 22 years old. He's 5'5",
he has like a whippet.
Weighs 120 pounds. Takes that many people to hold him down.
Yeah, why not?
Maybe it's adrenaline.
I can
or
see
maybe
that
it's
happening.
a hypnotic state.
He's a hypnotoad.
At the police station, Sirhan was very calm, eerily calm. One of the officers said, "I was impressed by his composure and relaxation. He appeared less upset to me than individuals arrested for a traffic violation." That's also kind of unusual.
Again, I'm just going to say, in shock. Everyone is fucking different. And he could have just been, by all accounts, he's a cool, calm individual anyways. That's his nature.
Well, they say his behavior combined with his claim that he's claimed, for the past 53 years, that he remembers everything about that night on June 5th, 1968, except the moment of the shooting. Led a lot of people to theorize that maybe he was under hypnosis when he fired at Kennedy. Maybe he was an actual Manchurian candidate. His defense team looked into that angle before the trial, finding that he was easily hypnotized. He was a very suggestive person, and could be induced to do things without knowing why, such as climb the bars of his cell. Like they were able to hypnotize him to climb up the bars of his cell. But the lawyers chose to use a diminished mental capacity defense instead.
What, and just say he's a bit of a dumbhead?
Get sympathy for the jury so they don't think he's like this remorseless murderer.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I don't think he is a remorseless murderer anyways, but I don't.
Well, the hypnosis angle gained momentum in I'd say the past like decade or so, 2 decades. Because Sirhan was examined for more than 60 hours by a Harvard Medical School professor with vast expertise in forensic psychiatry and hypnosis. His name is Daniel P. Brown, and he concluded in 2011 that Sirhan did not act under his own volition and knowledge at the time of the assassination, and is not responsible for actions coerced and carried out by others. He feels that Sirhan was a true Manchurian candidate, hypno-programmed into carrying out a violent political act without actually even knowing it.
I've heard other things about this hypnosis as well, because I've read articles where they say that when he's under hypnosis, they can ask him a direct question and he will answer it, which under hypnosis, when you're like that, you're not meant to be able to do such things. You kind of like, you'll give a kind of stream of consciousness answer and he'll kind of snap out of it, do it, and then go back to it, which they can kind of prove and be like, he's kind of faking this. I've read articles about where he's been faking it. And if you've been doing it for like a long enough time, you could pull the wool over anyone's eyes.
I don't know. The Harvard Medical School professor could probably see through that ruse, I'm thinking.
I don't know. There's like, this is definitely...
This guy's hypnotized over 6,000 individuals over a 40-year professional career. He says Mr. Sirhan is one of the most hypnotizable individuals he's ever met. And the magnitude of his amnesia for actions under hypnosis is extreme.
What the lawyer should have done is to try and go for like instead of trying to avoid the death penalty, it's been like they could have done like a first case basis where they're like, he hypnotized himself and then he shot him. It would be like, when the sleepwalker defense first came out, could have used the hypnosis defense.
Well, I don't know if anyone would buy that. Well, so there's a great documentary called RFK Must Die by Irish documentarian Shane O'Sullivan. And here he is with Brown discussing Sirhan.
So at one point in the waking state, with instructions for free recall, I simply said to him, "Did anybody ever give you instructions or commands to shoot on command?" And then suddenly Sirhan jumps up like this and takes a shooting posture that he was familiar to him at the gun range.
Range mode.
And starts citing these military terms that is about shooting at human organs, vital human organs like K6 and K9 and K12.
How would you know that?
The numbers are military code names for what's vital organ you aim at and target. And I'm thinking to myself, you don't take a civilian and teach them how to shoot at vital human organs. This is unusual. And then we found out that we could trigger range mode, and every time we triggered it, we could get him to stand up and start shooting automatically. And he remembered that as he was at a target range shooting at circle targets.
Triggered range mode. So there's a chance, almost like an attack animal. You say the code word, red squirrel. Next thing you know, he's like in range mode, thinking he's at a target range.
Yeah, but are you not telling me that when he saw that these investigators were fucking delighted by how he was acting, that he didn't automatically then start doing it every time they were like, let's set him off again? Because even the dumbest of criminals will do that. It's like
he's in a deep
syndrome.
Hypnotic state. I'm thinking this guy, a Harvard medical professor, would know how to induce hypnosis and know if someone was faking or not at that point.
Well, I've read things where they say that they think he is faking it.
Well, Brown suspects that Sirhan might have been part of the CIA's MK Ultra mind control experiments of the 50s and 60s. And he says that's why a mild-mannered Palestinian immigrant with no criminal history suddenly showed up at a hotel and shot, the presidential candidate. Sirhan's attorney, William Pepper, said he's convinced that someone used drugs and hypnosis to make him a compliant distraction. At the time, Bobby Kennedy was within range of a second shooter who was able to get behind him and shoot him point blank in the back of his head. Now, prosecutors noted that many psychological experts believe that a person cannot be hypnotized to do something against their will. That's what when I was talking about Big Jer when we were in Las Vegas, Jer said he knew like what he was doing didn't make sense to him, but he said he just felt compelled, like overwhelmingly compelled to do it. So, I don't know. It's like the jury's out on that. Like if you're amenable to being in deep like being able to undergo a deep hypnotic state, which obviously if this doctor saying Sirhan could do this, and triggered that you're also susceptible having amnesia triggered. It makes sense. It gives me pause to think that someone could, like an organization, a professional, someone who knows what they're doing, combination of drugs and hypnosis, make a killing machine.
Possibly, but I just don't buy it. I think it's just too convoluted. It's just too much. And plus, there's all these people in this room. Why did nobody see the other shooter and be like, oh yeah, I can identify him?
Well, I'm going to get to a possible shooter here. So Alan Shefflin, and keep in mind too, witnesses might have identified a possible shooter, but 2,400 tapes were destroyed of what they said, and their transcripts were altered, according to researchers. Alan Shefflin here, an expert on mind and behavior control and a former law and philosophy professor at Georgetown, said that the word hypnosis, like mind control and brainwashing, kind of has a public stigma. Obviously, to Kate Rambo, it does. People think it's kind of like a magician's trick. But Shefflin examined the CIA's mind experiments in a book he wrote called The Mind Manipulators. And he found that the agency did have a project, and this is at that time, MK Ultra, designed to create hypnotized subjects for purposes of assassination. And the CIA experiments showed that it was possible. Hypnotized people were ordered to do things that they would normally never do, such as rip up a Bible. So to rip a Bible, that's like ripping a phone book. You got to be a pro wrestler to do that.
No, you don't. There's an actual skill. You can
rip a phone book.
Yeah.
Or fire a gun at somebody that they otherwise never would do. So Sirhan had a fascination with hypnosis before the assassination, but said he could not remember anyone hypnotizing him to perform any kind of devious acts. So in recordings with his defense lawyers and psychiatrists in 1968, these were later released by authors Robert Blair, Kaiser, and William Klaber. They wrote 2 books about the RFK assassination. He's shocked that he shot Kennedy. Like he didn't even realize that he did this, but he realizes he was captured at the scene with a gun. He doesn't remember shooting him, and he's baffled by it, but he does realize he was captured at the scene with a gun. He also doesn't recall writing in his notebooks that were found in his apartment. But these notebooks repeatedly had the term RFK must die, though he acknowledges that this was in his handwriting. There's a young Sirhan there. He said, "This is what I don't understand. If I wanted to kill a man, why would I have shot him right there when they could have choked me?" There's the notebooks there. RFK must die. He also noted that he was a Christian and that murders against his upbringing. Thou shalt not kill. So he didn't understand why he was even there with a gun. So here's another clip from that same documentary. People should go check.
Grasp the concept of the Manchurian Candidate. He can't. But he also can't explain why he can't remember.
That may sound fairly fantastic, but I did interview his brother Munir, and his brother said it was true that he could hear Morse code in the background because Sirhan played with his shortwave radio mostly every night, including the weekend before the assassination, and that he mostly was listening to Morse code. So these notebooks were actually shaped before the assassination, and he wrote down the statements probably before he even was involved in the assassination, just so to make sure that he would be incriminated at trial. So we would call that a involuntary confession.
The first time that Dan and I met.
An involuntary confession, Kate Rambo. That's what they call that.
All of this is just giving me major David Berkowitz, like you're a bit cuckoo vibes. Start listening to your Morse code. Are you there, boy? How's it going, son?
The Harvard professor says that Sirhan was a victim of a larger scheme. He was a distraction while there was another gunman who actually fired the fatal shots. And in 4-hour interviews with Sirhan between 2008 and 2010, Brown said Sirhan would suddenly switch into a military-like alter personality state, which was called range mode, which he said before. So back in during the Cold War times, the CIA had a project called Bluebird, which they later called Artichoke, and then later became Project MK Ultra. And these were the experiments on unwitting people to see if their minds could be manipulated by drugs or torture. So during this time, so this was like 50s is when they started. They're still doing this throughout the 60s. 1966, Sirhan was 22 years old, living in Pasadena. He wasn't political or ambitious really in any way. I guess his sister had died from leukemia. He's a bit traumatized by her death. And he had actually turned to hypnosis as a way to explore life after death in an effort to reach out to her. He worked at the Santa Anita horse track as a stable boy, walking but not riding horses. He did one day want to become a jockey. His hobby was shortwave radio, and he had a radio set up in his home, in his room. So during this time, when he was a horse walker, he was working at the Santa Anita racetrack, which Robert Kennedy Jr. found out later was owned by Rosselli, the mobster, who was involved with the murder of Castro. He then began riding horses at a ranch in Corona, California. Brown found that Sirhan was recruited by the operator of this private ranch, also owned by Rosselli, for thoroughbreds to ride horses there, even though Sirhan walked horses but had very little experience riding. Before long, he suffered a couple of major falls that required hospitalization. His family reported that after those incidents, Sirhan's personality changed.
Of course.
Changed a bit.
This is how you create a serial killer, folks.
Well, Brown believes that Sirhan was during this period, after he interviewed him and after he had these falls and he was in the hospital, Brown believes it was then that Sirhan was drugged and taken to a secret location for the MK Ultra mind control experiments. Sirhan and his family both reported that he was gone for over 2 weeks after one of the falls. And though Brown said hospital records showed that he was released after 1 day.
Did they? Yeah.
So Sirhan told Brown that he was held in a room with bars on the windows and recalled being disoriented and floating in and out of consciousness, sleeping frequently.
Well, that was like me the other day for 22 hours.
That's what I'm saying. He might have KLS syndrome. Sirhan's spotty memory gives the impression of someone who was actually drugged, treated for superficial wounds in an emergency room, but then taken to a completely separate special experimental unit and held for like over 2 weeks. And so, yeah, they found out later, RFK Jr. looked into this too, that the ranch operator had ties to the mafia and that the mafia had obvious links to the CIA. This is all had to do with Castro. And so then in Pasadena, Sirhan met a guy that they called Radio Man. No one even knows what this guy's name is.
Oh, Lord.
He was a man who shared Sirhan's interest in shortwave radios. Brown believes that Radio Man used waking coercive persuasion and possibly hypnosis to control Sirhan. He wrote that the statements about killing RFK in these notebooks, that RFK must die, Sirhan didn't even remember writing this. These were written by Sirhan in a hypnotic state while communicating with a third party over shortwave radio, possibly Morse code. So he feels that all of those, that the scribblings in the book, the drawings, the RFK must die, the threats were all involuntarily induced. So what's also kind of strange, over the next 2 years, Sirhan got a new hobby, began visiting a firing range not too far from the ranch. He now had guns, which he never had before. He wasn't like a big avid gun collector. He was a kid.
But I mean, like, that's a hobby, isn't it? It's a very American hobby, but I don't see any difference between why it's suddenly strange. He started going to the gun range. It's like,
the guy starts riding horses at a ranch owned by this mobster. He has a few falls. All of a sudden, his personality's changed. His family says his personality's changed. He's spending hours every day at the firing range. Brown claims that he had guidance from Radio Man on how to shoot targets, but he spent hours at the range on June 5th, on the day of the killing.
Just tell me what's the difference between Radio Man and Sam the dog telling Berkowitz to kill? There's no fucking difference. It's the same thing.
Well,
he has had a bump to the noggin, man, and he has gone crazy.
On the night of the assassination, Sirhan has described going to the ambassador to attend a different political victory party, drinking too much and returning to his car. Not feeling well enough to drive, he then returned to the hotel looking for coffee, and an attractive woman in a polka dot dress
Here she is.
led him to a coffee urn near the pantry. That we'll get to a picture in a second. Led him to a coffee urn near the pantry of the hotel and then into the pantry. So here's Sirhan's attorney, Lori Dusek, talking about this woman. So I guess you could show her a picture of the polka dot lady.
So his personality had changed. Before the shooting, he went to the Fish Canyon firing range. And what was unusual that day is Sirhan would usually go to the range, shoot for a little while, and then leave. That particular day, he was there for a few hours. And the range master said the range was closing down, so Sirhan had to leave. He met a friend of Bob's, Big Boy, and actually he regrets because the friend said, hey, let's go shoot some pool. And Sirhan, to this day, says if only he had gone with his friend, none of this would have happened. And so he went into LA, and he went to the Ambassador Hotel because there was another party there. And he had gone to school with a daughter of that candidate. So he thought maybe he'd run into some people there. Sirhan was not a big social butterfly, very withdrawn, very much to himself. And when he was in the Ambassador Hotel, he stopped at the Rafferty party and then noticed that there was a larger party going on, which was the RFK victory party. And so he went there. The interesting thing is he's not a drinker. I think he had alcohol twice before in his life. And he said each time it made him ill. Supposedly he had 4 Tom Collins.
What's in a Tom Collins?
I don't know. I was waiting for you to tell me. I thought you guys.
I was wondering. I know. Like when I heard this, I was like, "Oh, 4 Tom Collins. Is that a lot of alcohol? Is that like a Harvey Wallbanger or something?"
Is it like a Shirley Temple? I know Shirley Temple's for the kids, but is it a Shirley Temple but with vodka in?
I don't know. I have no idea what it is. I thought it was like a lemonade.
I wish
like a
I
lemonade
knew.
vodka.
I wish
I
I
have
was
to
the
look
type.
that up.
Yeah.
And as he was drinking, obviously the drinks affected him because the alcohol went to his head. He thought he could go back home, so he went out to his car and he was going to drive home. But when he got to his car, he realized that he was too drunk. So he walked back into the Ambassador and he thought he'd have some coffee and try to sober up. And when he went back in, he ran into this woman who was looking for coffee.
Right there.
I started searching for coffee.
There's Sirhan.
That was all what I wanted to do. And I found some.
In the kitchen area?
But where, I don't remember, sir.
In a kitchen-type room?
I don't remember where I saw it, but I remember getting the cup. It was a shining...
Larger?
urn. And there was a girl there. No, I don't remember much what happened after that.
You don't remember?
I don't remember.
Do you remember anything?
Other than the choking and the commotion. I don't remember that.
He gets
So that's about it. That's he doesn't remember anything that happened during the incident. He remembered before, but he doesn't remember after that. He remembers gazing at the attractive woman who was noticed by other people. There are other witnesses who also saw this lady in the polka dot dress. And he remembers being pummeled by the men who captured him afterwards with the gun in his hands.
They always like to include a mysterious woman in these scenarios, don't they? Because you've got the babushka lady for JFK, who they've all been trying to... She has something to do with it. It's like the polka dot dress lady who has to be there.
Well, he
salute
says his
him.
presence at the hotel was an accident. I mean,
Yeah,
not a planned
right.
destination. And under hypnosis, he remembers meeting this girl. She led him to the pantry. He was looking at her thinking he's going to score. He's checking her out. He's like, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to hit on her. I was, she was a seductress with an unspoken unavailability. But in the pantry, as he was trying to think about what he's going to do, she pinched him or touched him on the shoulder. And that's when he turned around and started shooting his gun.
He went into hypnotoad mode.
Range mode. He says, I was on the target range, a flashback to the shooting range. I didn't even know that I even had a gun on me.
Yeah,
That's what he
right.
claims. And then he snapped out of it and thought, I'm not at the range. What's going on? And that's when he was being grabbed. Later, when I saw the female judge, I knew that Bobby Kennedy was shot and I was a shooter, but it doesn't come into my memory at all. It doesn't remember pulling the trigger of the gun.
Yeah.
Is it automatic
right.
post-hypnotic behavior and coercive control? Is that what happened? Was it the pinch, the touch of the polka dot lady that set him off?
Yeah, I'm blaming the woman. You've always got to blame the woman in these types of scenarios. It's the woman's fault.
Under what Brown called the condition of hypnotic free recall, he said Sirhan remembered seeing the flash of a second gun at the time of the assassination, but without hypnosis, couldn't remember that shot.
Yeah, right. Right. So
At this point, you're just being like, fuck this.
It's all just so, as Avril Lavigne says, it's just also fucking complicated. Like, it's just so simple what happened.
So the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy authors, Tim Tate and Brad Johnson, say they believe they identified the woman in the polka dot dress as Elaine Neal, and that her husband claimed to have worked for the CIA during the MK Ultra days. Neal died in 2012, the husband years earlier. But the author, Shane O'Sullivan, who did the documentary RFK Must Die, reported the same details in his documentary. And he said that Neal did not actually marry the CIA man until 1973. But Johnson claims that he learned additional details about Neal after the deadline for his book. He said that Neal and her husband actually met in 1967. And by 68, they were having an affair. Neal's own first marriage ended in 68.
Okay.
So there's another young Kennedy campaign worker, Sandy Serrano. She claimed a young Hispanic man and a Caucasian woman wearing a polka dot dress quickly burst out of the rear service exit of the Ambassador Hotel, claiming, "We shot him." When asked who, the young woman responded, "Senator Kennedy."
I've heard about this, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Sergeant Sharaga was made aware of the suspicious duo by a middle-aged married couple who had frantically flagged him down shortly after he had pulled his squad car into the parking lot. And Sharaga immediately issued an all-points bulletin for this young couple, the Hispanic guy and the polka dot dress lady. But it was canceled without any explanation. Serrano was then coerced by police into changing her story.
I think it's very easy to misinterpret as someone is running past you in a crisis scenario when there's been gunshots and everything's going crazy around you, to misinterpret someone saying I for they or them. Like, if there's any less credibility than an eyewitness, it's somebody who says, I heard something. It's like,
well, she was sitting right there and she saw, and there were multiple witnesses that also saw this woman running out saying, "We got him. We shot him."
Yeah, but you can that's what I'm saying. I
Well,
give
but
no
I could say
credibility
maybe
to
if it's
them.
1 or 2 people, but if it's like 10 people saying that they saw a woman in a polka dot dress saying we shot him.
Oh, he shot him. It's so easy to misinterpret things. Like, so easy.
Well, California attorneys general said that Brown's conclusions are clearly speculative. This is the Harvard medical professor. And they all depend on the veracity of Sirhan's story. Brown completely ignored the vast amount of evidence presented at the trial, which contradicted what Sirhan was saying and contradicting Sirhan's self-serving recall of the events.
Yeah.
And they proved that he intentionally killed Senator Kennedy. And so this is in 2013. U.S. Magistrate Judge Andrew J. Wistrich noted that Sirhan's theory that he was subject to mind control may be intriguing, but the experts' views fall short of demonstrating that he was actually subjected to mind control. Research added that Brown's retrospective opinion, based on his tests assessing Sirhan's mental condition 40 years after the fact, are of negligible weight at best. So the final thing here that I'm going to mention is a guy named Thane Eugene Caesar, and that's what I mentioned before, was a security guard.
Yeah. Okay.
So when he entered the pantry, when Sirhan entered the pantry and the gunfire began, RFK's right arm was being held supposedly to guide him through the pantry by an armed uniformed security guard named Caesar. I think we might have a pic of Caesar. I think it's like pic 17. He was to the right of and close behind the senator. Behind the senator is the key point. There he is, top right. He's the security at this event. The 26-year-old Caesar worked for Ace Guard Service, which was a private security firm hired by the hotel. At the time of the assassination, Caesar had previously worked for Ace Guard Service for just 1 day during the previous week. Under the government narrative, Caesar was the only person except the assassin in the pantry with a gun.
That we know about.
No. As RFK collapsed, he somehow grabbed and pulled off Caesar's clip-on tie, which ended up on the floor in the uncropped, iconic that's the next photo, the black and white news photo that shows RFK flat on his back on the pantry floor, being comforted by the busboy, Juan Romero. But
Can we just go back to talk about the fact he has a clip-on tie? Like, come on, Bobby, how old are you? He must be in his 40s at this point. Put a tie on.
It wasn't Bobby's tie; it was Caesar's tie.
Oh, right. Sorry, I was getting.
As he pulled up. Go to the next
fair
picture,
enough.
because the next picture is the icon. This is the iconic photo
picture
of Bobby Kennedy sprawled out on the floor, just got shot, and he had pulled off Caesar, the security guard's clip-on tie, and that's what's laying over there by his right hand. So I mean, it's interesting, According to his own statement and those of several witnesses, Caesar drew his handgun when the shooting began, but he told police that he never fired it, although at least one witness said Caesar fired it once. Police never examined Caesar's pistol, and later Caesar admitted to police that he owned or previously owned a .22, but claimed he was carrying a different weapon, a .38, the night RFK was shot. RFK was shot with a .22.
Right.
And interviewed by police multiple times, Caesar's account of events in the pantry kept changing.
Oh.
So now Caesar took it upon himself to give RFK a safe escort through the pantry. He was the only one that did it. He was the only security guard there, the only person that should have had a gun. He failed. The author of a lie too big to fail, she wrote that the kindest thing we can say about Caesar is that he failed in his job.
Massively.
Well, he was in the perfect position to have been the gunman who killed Kennedy, or to have held Kennedy, shielding other shooters from the view as they fired upon him in close range. Kind of difficult not to imagine that he was involved in some way. Now, looking into his history, though, and his background, in the 60s and 70s, Caesar worked at Lockheed Aviation Plant in California. A casual acquaintance who worked there told researchers that the plant was a CIA-controlled U-2 spy plane facility, Lockheed Aviation Plant, California, and that Caesar often worked in an on-limits area that only special personnel had access to. On top of all this, Caesar was a right-wing extremist who hated the Kennedys and supported racist Alabama Governor George Wallace.
Right. I would not take the I work in a warehouse type situation. And let me tell you that I used to work with somebody who believed that lizard people were real. Don't take former workmates
But
and
I'm just saying, it's
salacious
this.
gossip.
There are a lot of coincidences here. Sometime in the mid '70s, Caesar told the LAPD they also worked at Hughes Aircraft, subsidiary of Hughes Organization. Caesar was once spotted in Vegas in the company of a Florida hitman, a mafia hitman. The person who saw him remarked, "He's owned by Howard Hughes, and his name is Thane Caesar, and he's as tough as they come."
Well, maybe he is. But he's
It's
not a very
it's
good security
that's
guard,
I'm
is
just
he?
saying there's a lot of strange coincidences here. Finally, John Meyer, who was a top aide to Hughes from 66 to 70, also knew Caesar because Caesar worked for the Hughes organization. And shortly after the RFK assassination, he was listening to a broadcast about what happened, and he heard Caesar's name mentioned as one of the security guards at the hotel. He thought that was kind of strange. He's like, how did this guy who used to work for Hughes is now the security guard for RFK at this hotel? In his personal diary, entered June 13th, 1968, Meyer wrote, "I remember Thane from his trips to Vegas, Las Vegas, where he was meeting with numerous gaming people and was introduced to me by Jack Hooper, who is an associate of Bob Mayhew." In an interview with the author who wrote Lisa Pease, John Meyer told her that after hearing the radio broadcast, he called someone and discussed the fact that I know Thane Caesar, who had been the ambassador that night. The next day, he was summoned by Mayhew and chewed out. Mayhew was furious and wanted to know why he was checking up on Thane. And Meyer was stunned by Mayhew's anger. And he said to me that if I kept discussing this matter, he would see that I was no longer around the Hughes operation. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of strange.
But
I
this
mean,
is all
Thane
just
Caesar
like,
worked for Robert Mayhew, who was involved with Hughes, who was involved with the CIA.
but
He
this
was a
is all
security
just
guard.
gossip upon gossip upon gossip, all of that. That's just all like speculation. None of that is like what hard given facts. That's just somebody bitching about somebody else who's bitching about someone else through time as well. That's like 40 years later bitching. If you've got a
Last thing I'm going to
bring
point
it
out.
on. Bring
Last
it
thing I'm going to
on.
point out. Look at this picture right here.
Okay.
Shane O'Sullivan alleged that several CIA operatives were present at the night of the assassination at the ambassador. 3 of those accused of these officers were former senior officers who worked together at in 1963 at JM Wave, which was the CIA's main anti-Castro like secret operations base in Miami. JM Wave Chief of Operations David Morales, Chief of Maritime Operations Gordon Campbell, pictured here, and Chief of Psychological Warfare Operations George Joannides were identified in photographs taken at the ambassador. George Joannides, this guy headed up MK Ultra. He's at the ambassador the night of the assassination.
Well, isn't it funny how they destroyed 2,500 pictures, but yet they've left in MIK Ultra executives? Oh, those pictures are still around.
Well, this is what Shane Sullivan found this. This was from his documentary. Also, according to Sullivan, Morales, who is the chief operating officer of JM Wave, was known for his deep anger with the Kennedys for what he saw as their betrayal during the Bay of Pigs. He said, "I was in Dallas when we got the son of a bitch, and I was in Los Angeles when we got the little bastard." That's a quote.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
was there for it, but again,
So my question was the RFK assassination a second Dallas?
no, you take that back, DC.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of weird. There's a lot of things that seem like it's too connected to be a coincidence. It's more than a coincidence.
Not in JFK, there isn't.
No,
JFK
I'm
is
saying with
open and shut.
RFK, JFK. I didn't really, I have read about it. I feel like that I feel like there's speculation. It definitely seems strange, but there's so many weird ties and connections here with RFK's assassination that would make me think like, I don't know if there's a single gunman. I don't know if one person can shoulder all the blame who acted alone to kill this man.
To me, yeah, there is only one gunman who's done this. It's all just so Again, Avril Lavigne, it's just too complicated. It's too convoluted. I put more stock in the FBI. I put more stock in the CIA. They would not leave such
I don't
an
trust
obvious
either
trail
one of
like
those
this.
organizations.
I trust them to like be a bit more smarter and to think a bit harder.
That's another thing I don't. I mean, MK Ultra, you'd think they would never let anyone find out about what they did with that.
Well,
But yet it's come out.
Every country has done something to that extent of MK Ultra. We were giving soldiers LSD in the 1940s, and that came out. It always comes out in the wash. But to me, there's no real reason to kill RFK. He wasn't even president yet. And what? They could do it cleaner.
He was going to be
they?
president.
Well,
And
why
they
didn't
did
they
it clean.
do?
They did it very cleanly.
No. This is not clean in front of
Well,
a
there's
room full of
there's a
witnesses.
bunch of yeah, but they never were found out, and they blamed it on this like insane Palestinian immigrant.
Well, why don't they just cut the brakes in his car? That's easier. That's cleaner. And then
because he's probably not even
that.
driving, and there's a good chance he wouldn't even die. I think they were like going for an assassination attempt. They were putting it on a patsy, and it was and it's believable. It's credible. The guy's been in prison for 53 years. It's interesting that Robert F. Kennedy's own son is the person who did a lot of this research that thinks he should be released.
Yeah, but all the other kids are like, nope, he did it. Just
that's
because
the
two of the kids believe that he should be freed.
6 of RFK's 9 surviving children said they were shocked by the parole board, and they're urging California Governor Gavin Newsom to keep Sirhan behind bars.
Gavin will. He doesn't like releasing high-profile killers, and I don't think he's going to start with this.
Rory Kennedy and 5 other Kennedy siblings are speaking out against a parole recommendation. They share the following statement. As children of Robert F. Kennedy, we are devastated that the man who murdered our father has been recommended for parole. Our father's death is a very difficult matter for us to discuss publicly, and for the past many decades, we have declined to engage directly in the parole process. But given today's unexpected recommendation by the parole board after 15 years previous decision to deny release, we feel compelled to make our position clear. We adamantly oppose the parole and release of Sirhan Sirhan and are shocked by a ruling that we believe ignores the standards for parole of a confessed first-degree murderer in the state of California. That's going to be an awkward Christmas.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? The Kennedys like to sit around the dinner table and debate each other. I can imagine this has been a debate ever since he died about who really killed him.
Well, I think they believed it up until recently when there's been these documentaries, and then Robert F. Kennedy Jr. started doing his own research.
Well, they didn't know. It doesn't sound like the rest of the kids believe that because they said the man who murdered my father. There is only one person who murdered RFK. It's not the CIA. It's fucking Sirhan Sirhan.
Well, three of the other children believe otherwise. So now California's parole board might have voted to free the assassin. His release is not assured. The ruling will be reviewed over the next 120 days, and then it'll be sent to the governor, who will have 30 days to decide whether to grant, reverse, or modify it. Now, with the potential recall, perhaps it might be Governor Angeline who's going to make that call.
Oh my God, imagine if Angeline releases the guy who killed RFK. Good, and then she can release Bobby Beausoleil, and we can live in a perfect world where no one does anything wrong ever.
It's an interesting topic. I got to say, I was pretty enthralled this past week. If you want to check out some of my sources, people, there's some great documentaries you can find online. I would go check out the O'Malley documentary, RFK Must Die. It's very thorough. He also did another one called The Manchurian Candidate. This by Shane O'Sullivan. That's not O'Malley. Documentary filmmaker Shane O'Sullivan wrote that one. Also, there's another one called The Second Dallas Senator Robert F. Kennedy Assassination Documentary. It's called The Second Dallas Senator Robert F. Kennedy Assassination. It's by Massimo Mazzucco. It's pretty good, though. I looked at that one, too. Then there's the film Bobby, which is directed by Emilio Estevez. It has a whole star-studded cast. Anthony Hopkins, Lindsay Lohan, Demi Moore, Martin Sheen, Christian Slater, Sharon Stone. And then there's a 2002 American television film called RFK. And then a number of books. I recommend the Feral House one, though. Lisa Pease's A Lie Too Big to Fail. That came out. But yeah, very interesting story. And I'm I'd be willing to wager that Sirhan Sirhan's not going to get out of jail anytime soon.
He's not getting out
Prison.
of jail.
Yeah.
No, he's there till he dies.
But is he the lone assassin?
Yes, I'm all riled up, D. I'm all riled up. Only him. You've done nothing to prove to me that it was anyone but him.
People, this is episode 806 here. Stick around. We'll get some phone calls coming up next. Stick around hotline. You can call it. You can call it right now. 323-522-4032. Leave a message under 3 minutes and we'll play it on the show. If it's over 3 minutes, it's going to end up on the Patreon page. Before we get to that, though, here's a word, a plug about our Patreon page. We do love the patrons and we appreciate your support in the show. All right, I got to fucking piss.
Yeah, me too. I'll wait for you to come back. Yeah. Thank you. Speaking of patrons, thank you, Multi Twat Man. I did very enjoy the Mulder and Scully comparison. I agree. I'm very skeptical about stuff like this. I listened to a very good series podcast about why Sirhan, I can't say his name. Sirhan is the only shooter and killer of RFK. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called like Killing RFK. It came out like a couple of years ago, and it's all based on the interviews he gave to the police. I think it's 13 part series. It's made by somebody like Wondery. You'll binge it if you binge podcasts. I definitely did. I should have listened to it this week in preparation. But guess what, guys? I didn't at all. I'm still getting over having this viral infection. Duran. Yeah, Sirhan. Still getting over having this weird fake COVID that wasn't the real COVID. Although I wish it had been the COVID. I'm now up to taking like 8 tests and they all come up so strong negative. It's so fucking annoying. Not that I want the COVID, but I want to get time off work. I want to have 11 days in lockdown. That would be cool. I could write a book, 11 days in lockdown. Well, let me tell them.
Yo.
Hey, D, did you see that Multi-Twat Man patron? He compared us to the modern day Mulder and Scully because you're always willing to keep your mind open, whereas I'm like, fuck no.
Yeah, you just shoot down any of the theories.
I was just talking about that
I want to
podcast
believe.
I listened to. No, do not believe. It's freaking
I want
stupid.
to believe. Another damn talk show. What's going on? Dude, the tinfoil hats. This is a tinfoil hat conspiracy, but there's a lot of loose ends here. Was Scully boned by an alien? I don't remember that. I don't remember that. All right. Cliff Richard had Jill Dando killed. I'm gonna have to look into this Jill Dando murder. We do call it tinfoil. That's what it's called. All right, I gotta queue up some phone calls here. Hold on a second. Z.
I keep thinking about rewatching X Files because I was all right when I was a kid, but I wonder how it's aged.
I don't know. I couldn't. I did love that show, but my whole thing with that show is I was always more into the monster ones, like when they had monsters.
Yeah, I liked all the monstery ones too. Rather than the aliens were always okay, but
It was the aliens and the conspiracies. I was always like, eh.
yeah.
But sometimes the aliens could be kind of monsterish, I suppose. All right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I do you think Sirhan Sirhan is the last action hero?
Stop it. I'm already riled.
Have you guys seen Last Action Hero? It's one of Kate's favorites. It's Kate's favorite Schwarzenegger movie.
It is. I said that on the Patreon recently, and then we talked about it just before. I have many reasons for thinking
disagree.
it is the best. I think
I
it
do
changed
I do
popular
agree with you
culture
with
as we
that
know it.
though. Well, I don't know about that.
Well, it did.
I think
It-
Pulp
it-
Fiction had more of an effect on film than that movie ever did.
No, it changed. It did definitively in a contemporary culture theory of the world change cinema history. It's undeniable what that film did. You can stare at me all you want with those black eyes. It's true, D. There's freaking many semiotic article written about it. You can't even get into it. It's true.
A critical and commercial disappointment, largely forgotten by the masses. But
It's not though for what it's done. But there's like what? So it's Fassbender. You walk to somebody and say, "How many
I'm
Fassbender
saying
films have you seen?" They'll go,
I would never compare Last Action Hero to Fassbender. I also think that Last Action Hero, when that movie came out, was when Schwarzenegger sort of jumped the shark.
Jamie Lee Curtis is in True Lies.
Schwarzenegger jumped the shark and then started doing like Kindergarten Cop. True Lies is all right, I guess.
True
but,
Lies
like,
is awesome.
was True Lies before or after
True
Last
Lies
Action
is
Hero?
they're the same year, I think. I think Last Action is 93 and True Lies is 94.
Because
But
did
I
he-
love both those films. And I like Twins.
But when did
and I like
Twins
Kindergarten
come
Cop.
out?
Twins is like 91, 92.
So it was Twins before Last Action Hero?
Yeah.
Maybe Twins then is when he jumped the shark.
No, I like all these films and I like Junior too. Because I grew up watching them. I grew up
Oh,
I
God.
got 80s Schwarzenegger and I got 90s Schwarzenegger. But then around the year 2000, that's when
I remember being
That's
very
for me.
disappointed when he started making like movies like Twins. So I was like, what the
Twins
fuck,
is good.
dude?
Danny DeVito is fucking great in Twins.
I hated that he was trying to be like a comedic actor and it just pissed me off. Let me see when this came out here. I'm looking up his his filmography.
I think 6th Day was when I started to get very bored of Schwartz.
6th Day. I don't even know if I've seen that one.
That was like that was when there was that little spree of satanic films that came out. There was a fair few of them, and 6th
Wow,
Day
Twins,
was the satanic
Twins
one.
was 88.
Shit, was that the 80s? It's good.
All right. Yeah. Okay. My theory is changing here. So Predator came out in
No
87.
way.
Brilliant movie. Predator. Twins was 88. Total Recall was 1990, which was great.
Yeah.
Kindergarten Cop also that same year.
1990,
Then-
was it?
Then Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which was also a good movie.
Is that
It was
94?
91.
What?
And then 2
Jesus.
years later was Last Action Hero. And then that just kind of changed everything. Because there was True Lies,
He's
Eraser,
fantastic in it.
Jingle All the
Oh,
Way,
Eraser. Eraser's great.
Jingle All the Way. Oh yeah, he was in Batman and Robin.
Yeah,
In
I was
Siege.
talking about that with Siege. So if you're a patron, you'll hear me talk about that.
I don't remember this movie End of Days. Was that good?
That's the apocalypse. That's the satanic apocalypse one. And Guns
it
N'
good? Or was
Roses.
it-
Guns N' Roses do that song on End of Days, which is like Guns N' Roses is his last good song.
Which one is that?
Oh, I'll have to look it up. One sec. He must be India.
Yeah, I remember when he came out with Twins. I was horrified. I was just like, "What the fuck are you doing, Arnold? Like, what is this?" But then Total Recall came out. I was like, all right, it's cool. It's cool. But then Kindergarten Cop came out and I was like, okay,
It's called
this is not cool.
it's called Oh My God, but it's good.
I don't want to play it, but I do kind of want to hear
Yeah,
it.
well, we can listen
Did
to it
you
after.
did you ever hear the or did you ever see the Schwarzenegger movie Maggie about the zombie girl?
Is that a new one?
That came out in like 2015, but I never saw it.
Yeah, that's new.
But it's
No,
like
I've
a
never seen it.
post-apocalyptic horror drama film where he's got this daughter that's like a zombie. It's Abigail Breslin, the chick from Little Miss Sunshine.
No.
I might have to watch this End of Days. End of Days was good. All right.
And they're saying somebody watched it this week and said it was good. It was like The Omen meets Da Vinci Code, which is a perfect description of what that film is.
I wasn't a big fan of the Da Vinci Code.
I never saw it. I had no
You know,
interest in seeing it.
I was bored of it. I wasn't that into it.
Yeah. And it's Tom Hanks, isn't it? And I've usually got all the time in the world for that man. You know, I did watch recently for the 200th million time of my life.
Splash.
Still the greatest film ever. No, The Burbs.
Oh, the Burbs. I like the Burbs. Splash was one of my favorite movies when I was a
Satan is
kid.
good. Satan is our pal. Satan is good. Satan is our pal.
End of Days, huh? It's good.
Yeah, I mean, you should get it and watch it. This is pretty much
All
all
right.
the patron is. It's just me and Dee talking about films and then segueing
And arguing
into,
about
into
arguing
records.
about films.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the records. Yeah, you guys should listen. Actually, you guys should, if you're, I think most people on here are patrons, but you should go to our the outtakes this week. I kind of go into a hilarious story with Joe Kelly when we were in Phoenix.
Jojo at the minute is living life.
I don't know. He met a woman who was more than a woman. I'll put it that way.
More than a woman.
That was pretty amazing. All right. Let's get this going.
All right.
Quick beer here. So we got a few phone calls to get to. 323-522-4032 is the number of the Sick and Wrong Drunk Dial line. You can also email us, sickandwrongpodcast@gmail.com. Or, some people even send stuff through, send like messages through Facebook.
Yeah, you can message me.
So many different ways to do it. This guy, I don't even know why he still calls the hotline. He has so much like just visceral hatred for me. I don't really get it.
Batman villain here. I'm still better than you, and I'm still doing better than you.
I think Boner Villain secretly loves me.
I would love to start conversations where I'm like, oh, hey, buddy, I've not seen you in ages, but I'm still doing better than you. I love it.
I think Boner Villain is like has a secret crush. Do you think he has a shrine to D. Simon's house?
To the Jew shrine. Yeah, probably. He's still doing better than you, though. That's all that matters.
He's doing way better. I picture him to be kind of like Philip Seymour Hoffman in Happiness. He like prints out pictures of me and then like comes on them and just like shoots him, like, slaps him on the wall.
Yeah, and when they start falling down, when they come crusts, that's when he just does it again with a different picture.
And you're probably broke down with your cat. You probably take so much cream that it's too expensive for you to, be able to do whatever you need to.
What the hell is he talking about? He's like, I'm probably broke because of my cat's cream.
Yeah, because you can't afford the cream that your cat needs because it's obviously a specialist cat. But to be fair, he's kind of onto something.
And my cat is a special cat.
He is a special cat.
He is very special.
So, I'm a dog. You have a bald cat. But Batman villain is still better than you are. And Wackerly, yeah, I kind of know who he is, and we did meet each other. So
Wait. What did you say? Did you get that?
He has a dog. Dogs are better than cats, which in some circumstances I agree with. But he's met Wackerly apparently. Him and Wackerly have been having clandestine meetups.
I think they're like unified in their hatred of me.
He
And
knows.
where
He's met him.
yeah, I kind of know who he is, and we did meet each other.
I
So
think
eat shit and die. D, you still suck, and your cat still sucks. Eat shit.
what?
That
What the-
villain is better than you.
Wait, okay. I can understand why you would say tell me to eat shit and die, but Mike, what did my cat do to you, boner villain?
It just exists. I mean, the cat is pretty
Oh, the
annoying.
fact that there's like a bald cat that exists. What kind of animal do you think boner villain has?
Well, he says a dog. I can imagine whatever dog his mum has is it's like a Shih Tzu or something like that. It's one of those little yappy nap 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 nap.
Yeah, but I bet
ones.
you boner villain's personal animal that he takes care of and loves dearly.
Oh, his mother. You're talking
A
about his
gerbil.
mother.
No, it's gerbil.
Oh, we all know what happens with gerbils.
Guarantee he has a gerbil. One named D, one named Harrison.
Oh,
One
and one
named
named
Wackerly.
Wackerly. Not one named after me though. He would never
You're gonna
address
get a
me
new
personally.
one named Kate.
Well,
I wonder, boner villain, what do you think of Kate?
He can't address me personally because he can't talk to women. But I love his energy and how much he
Boner
loves me.
villain's 100% an incel. I bet you boner villain's never. He may have paid for sex, but I don't think he's ever had like transactional sex before.
Have you?
Yeah, once or twice.
Just once or
It was
twice.
coerced, but had a Bill Cosby cocktail. No, of course I've had sex, but no, I'm just saying. I bet you boner villain. I'm sure boner villain probably has had relationships with probably strippers at the
I was
Deja
gonna
Vu.
say what he likes is he's got his favorite strippers that he goes for couch dances with in the VIP
Yeah.
section.
I'm thinking
That's
Deja Vu.
That's about it.
Probably not the VIP section.
He's a rich man. He's got a Jeep. He's got a big house. He always talks about how rich he is. Of course, he goes to the VIP.
Do you really think
section.
his mom gives him enough money to go to the VIP section? I doubt it.
Son, here's your couch money for the week.
She's like, boner, you better not go and spend all your money over at the strip club at the Deja Vu.
But mom, they want more money for the couch dances.
First name Boner, last name Villain. Thank you, Boner Villain.
I admire
Smooches.
your energy.
Next call here is a celebrity, a very famous celebrity who has never called the show before.
Oh wow.
Hey D, hey Kate, Tom Jones here, calling you directly from the green hills
Tom
of South Wales.
Fucking Jones.
Congratulations on getting to 800 odd shows.
Thank you, Tom.
Kate, you're fucking smashing it. Much better than that fucking feather tickling yellow glasses wearing cunt. Much better than him. You almost rival Wackley, but in all fairness, you ain't no Wackley. But you're still
No.
pretty cool. So, yeah, I just thought to fucking ring you up and tell you a little bit about what I used to do before I started, walking around in leather pants and, crooning fucking elderly women.
Are you a big fan of Tom Jones? Like, how is Tom Jones regarded in the UK?
Yeah, he's like a beloved figure in the UK. He's definitely, there's no nonce rumors around Tom Jones like there are, say, Cliff Richards. You know that Tom Jones was like a
Cliff
shagger.
Richards a nonce too? I thought it was like
Yes!
Savile and Gary Glitter.
Cliff Richards has got like involved. He is a nonce. There's no way to me that he is not a nonce. It's gonna come
I had
out
no
when he
idea that
dies.
Cliff Richards a nonce too.
Did you not? Oh well, it's definitely a British thing. But I love Tom Jones.
Who do you prefer, Tom Jones or Cliff?
Tom, obviously Tommy Jones. I love the Welsh accent. It's definitely my favorite out of all the UK accents. I love the Welsh.
All right. Who do you think has shagged more women, Cliff or Tom Jones?
Are they underage?
No, I'm just saying women and just in general.
Cliff Richards has not had sex with anyone who is not underage. Let's put it like that.
Who is
Tom
not underage or is not over?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Tom.
So you're saying Cliff Richards hasn't had sex with anyone over 16, whereas
He's
Tom
a
Jones
nonce.
has had many
Yeah,
women.
Cliff Richards. If there's grass on the wicket, game over for that man. But Tom Jones, he loves a shag.
I always thought like Tom Jones was like the UK version of Neil Diamond.
Have you heard the Maybe Van Doren story about Tom Jones? I love this story.
No, I don't know if I have.
So he's obviously got a big bulge in his leather pants. She was really excited to shag him. And they went to the bedroom getting hot and heavy. And he was like, I just have to go to the bathroom quickly. And she was like, oh, yeah, can't wait for this. And then he came out the bathroom. The bulge was gone. There was no bulge. It's a pair of socks. And Mamie just had to make do with what she found.
Whoa. So he's like he's got a baby dick.
It's just a regular dick.
Oh, it's a regular dick, but she was thinking because it's a sock.
Because of that bulge, man. He has got a bulge.
I've heard Gene Simmons does that.
I imagine Gene Simmons stuffs, but you would never think that from Tom Jones, who does have the infamous bulge. He's a ladies' man. Yeah, and there was all that rumors about Tom Jones being with Priscilla Presley.
Yeah, I remember that. The first time I went to Europe as like on my own was in 1999 with my friend Kessler in P-Town, and the song "Sex Bomb." Maybe it was 2001.
Yeah, I remember when
the song "Sex Bomb." Remember that? Every fucking club we went to in Amsterdam and Spain and France, everywhere that we were, Germany, everywhere we went, it was inevitable that fucking song was going to come on. And we had never heard it before because it wasn't a big hit in the US. And we're just like, if I hear Sex Bomb one more fucking time, I'm going to fucking shoot myself. And then there's this like, sex bomb. It's just the fucking worst song I've ever heard.
There was that funny little resurgence with him where he had a couple of songs come out in like the 2000s, and then he just was guesting on people's songs. It just seemed to be like a weird Tom Jones is back, but now he's old. And
have you ever seen him live?
No, but I lived next door to like a park where like people come and play, and he played once, so I just sat in my house and opened the windows. So I've heard Tom Jones.
But you never actually went and was it a free show?
No, you had to pay. So
you had to pay.
Paying to see him, but I heard him for free.
Well, let's see what Tom Jones did before he became an internationally renowned rocker.
Having commercial success in the 70s. Fuck me, I'm fucking drunk. Shit, cunt. So years ago, I started working in a fucking secure unit. And fucking, some of the shit I seen was fucking nuts, man. Oh, fucking hell. Yeah. So it was my first night shift. This guy just got moved in, really fucked up in the head. And fucking, I'd only been in this job like 2 days prior to this. I was working in a bakery, like. So I was sat outside this guy's room, and all I heard was, "Kill John. Kill John." So I thought, what the fuck is this? And on this...
All right, I'm having a difficult time with the accent here. So he was a security guard, and he was working the first night he was working, and some guy was like, "Kill John."
Kill John. Yeah.
Okay, all right. But, I can understand this a little bit more clearly than I can the Scottish Glaswegian accent.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a little bit better with the Welsh one.
Bedroom door. It was like a fucking... it was like one of them one-way mirror kind of things, like you have in a police cell. So he opened the window. His face is pressed up against the glass. He'd cut his head all open. And he's there fucking wanking. He'd fucking cummed everywhere, fucking blood everywhere. The nurse comes down there and says, "Tom, go in here and sort him out, man." I was like, "Mate, fucking, it was this time last week I was making cakes, so I knew I'm to go in here and clean that shit up." So anyway, as I ended up going in there, sorted the guy out, chilled him out, all was fucking cool.
How? The guy's got a bloody head. He's covered in semen.
Yeah, he's wanking.
How do you chill that guy out?
You would tell him to stop wanking to start.
I don't even know.
Put your cock away, mate. Let's just calm down. I'll make you
Thorazine or something. Straight jacket.
And then he said, "Do me a favor, take my dirty laundry." It was up to the washroom. So I grabbed the dirty laundry, chucked it in the washroom. And as I was walking up to the washroom, I was like, what the fuck is this? As I felt something sticky in my hand, and all wrapped up in the towel was this guy's fucking cum. Like, I was like, oh, fuck. It was this guy, it turns out this guy had been like wanking into the towel, fucking waiting for me to go in there. I fucking, no, it was pick up like a day's worth of fucking cum. Dirty fucking cunt. Anyway, I'm drunk as fuck. There's a ring again some other time. Hopefully more coherent than this. But yeah.
I didn't even get what he said at the end.
I think
there,
at the
but
end he spoke real Welsh, which I can't do at all. That was amazing if it was. It's very
Oh, is
rare
that
you
like,
hear real Welsh.
yeah, no, that was good. I didn't get that one at all. But thank you there, Tom Jones. Wow, yeah. So he had like
He had a poison t-shirt that
mental-
he'd been wanking onto.
he had a mental person's jit gel rag in his hand that was full of cum.
I just listened to an FTV episode where they were talking about Martin's Coke towel. Do you remember this? He had it in his car.
It sounds vaguely familiar.
So it started out as a red Coca-Cola color, but by the end of his teen years, it was like a burnt out, bleached orange from all the fucking cum that he spread on his Coke rag towel.
Did he only like whack it in his car?
He whacked on it everywhere, but he had it in his car for a while. They were talking about how it was in his car because, yeah, he liked to whack off in his car.
God, how stiff do you think that towel was?
He actually rescued it and from his mother's house.
Does he still have it?
I imagine he still has it. Why wouldn't he? But that's the bleaching power of cum over the years. It'll turn red to a burnt out orange.
I swear to God, like an experience like that, first time on the job, I would quit.
It's cum is fine. I've dealt with many a strange scenario of cum, but if it was like anything like shit or vomit, someone else's shit or vomit, that's pretty much it. I'm going back to being
I remember
a baker too.
when I worked at the Gold Club, there's this guy, he was a bartender that I was good friends with. They would come up and he'd always give me a Jack and Coke. Like right when he'd be like, "Oh, hey, what's up, dude?" And bring me the Jack and Coke. But his name was, I don't want to say his real name, but we called him Wretch. But Wretch, he was like in the metal community. He's a cool guy. But Wretch, he was telling me one time that he was a bartender at that point, but he started out as a bar back. He said his first night of working at the Gold Club, at the strip club, he said one of the strippers, there was like a bathroom that was downstairs. It was like a single stall, like a handicap bathroom. And he said at one point, one of the strippers was like, "Oh my God, you have to see this." And when the managers like went over there, and apparently some guy like, got in a fight with one of the girls and got kicked out. And before he got kicked out, he went in the bathroom and shit like all over the floor, and then took the shit and wrote on the mirror, "Fuck these whores," in shit on the mirror. Yeah. And then the manager was just like, "You got to clean this," to Wretch, who was his first day as a bar back. I would have walked out.
I would have walked out. I'd have been like, "You fucking clean it."
I would have been like, "Fuck you. I'm not doing that. Get a cleaning crew and close the bathroom."
Yeah, it's fucking hepatitis central in there, mate. I'm not doing it.
He went in there and cleaned it. He cleaned it off.
Wretch is a northern slang for like, when if you cough up a ton of spit, when it goes to like lugry, it's wretch. Yeah, you go, "Oh, he's
retching."
He's retching everywhere. Yeah.
But a wretch is also like just a disgusting person.
Was he a disgusting person?
No, he's actually a really cool guy, and he was a long time metalhead. So he knew me from like way back when I used to do my old radio show. But then when I was DJing there, he was just like, "Holy shit, it's Dirty Sanchez."
So it's like an Italian nickname where you're going to give them the opposite of somebody. So because you're Jewish, your nickname could be Gentile D.
I don't know actually if it was a self-appointed nickname or if it was a nickname someone else gave him. I'm not sure.
In school or something, and it's just
Something
stuck with
like
him.
Anyway, Tom Jones, good to hear from you.
Always.
I would like to hear more tales of you of cavorting with buxom women. That's what I want to hear.
Shout out to Wales, to everyone listening there. I love it.
This is an international show if you think about it, because this next caller, this guy's a fan, longtime listener. Hung out with this guy when I was in Tokyo, and a really cool dude, actually. Had a really good time hanging out with him. When I get back to Tokyo, I'm going to hang out with you again. Here's Quenji Sean.
Hey, D, what's up? This is Quenji Sean calling from Tokyo. Kate Rambo, nice to make your acquaintance. It's probably been 6 years since I've called in or something like that. It's been a while. I started listening around episode 17 or something like that.
Whoa.
Dee, as you know, Johnny introduced me to the show. At the time, I was making some dirty zines and dumping them at bars and clubs around Tokyo. And Johnny comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, dude, I heard this awesome podcast called Sick and Wrong. Let's make a podcast like it. Combine your zine with the podcast. We'll make our own about Japan." And my dumbass, like, I went and did that with him for over 5 years. Something like.
I do love Johnny too. He's got a podcast called Got Faded Japan, and I've been on it a couple times. He's been on this podcast a few times. Great guy too, and that podcast is still going. I think it started like a couple years after we did.
Cool,
But
that's
yeah, big
great.
shout out to Johnny Got Faded. But yeah, I think Quincy Sean and Johnny were the first ones that started that show.
Incidentally, during that 5 years, I met my wife about 10 years ago through that podcast. Now I have 3 kids and a fucking 30-year home mortgage. So thanks for that,
Whoa.
Dee. Really appreciate that. But
Welcome.
yeah, man, congratulations, 800 episodes. Not a lot going on over here, because of the COVID lockdowns over the last year and a half, haven't been out a lot, but I do work remotely now. I was down in this dirty alley at this Korean chicken joint a little bit before noon the other day. I order my food. I'm sitting outside having a beer and a smoke, as you do when you work remotely, and there's like 8 dudes lined up for the rub and tug before they open. I guess they open at noon or something like that. The dude at the end of the line, man, he had like 2 big bags of groceries in plastic bags, vegetables sticking out the top. I think I saw a tub of ice cream at the bottom of one of those motherfuckers. And they open up the shop and all those dudes go shuffling in. You've been here, man. These are little teeny rub and tug joints, right? And there's not 8 girls in there. There's probably 2, 3.
Those places were like all over Japan. There's like little hole in the wall, tiny little rub and tug kind of massage parlors, but I don't even think you got a massage. You just literally went in there, got a hand
handy.
job.
I
Yeah,
would be
got a
so
hand job.
annoyed if my partner's gone out to get ice cream because I really wanted some ice cream, and then you're waiting there for him to bring it back. You're waiting ages, and then when he brings it back, it's just completely melted. You can't do anything. You can't refreeze that. It's going to get the crystals in it. It's going to taste like shit. That's your Sunday ruined. Your selfish behavior.
Yeah, but he's going to be in a better mood, a better temperament.
Do you
Probably.
think he feeds it to the late? I think he's giving it as a present to the.
You're not going to get carpal tunnel. I wonder if these
I have a technique.
Yeah, but I wonder if these like girls that work in these rub and tugs have to wear those like braces, those like bowling gloves that you do.
Put it into my
wrist.
claw.
Something like that. So I imagine these guys are standing in a line, kind of thinking to themselves whose dick is going to get jacked off before them. They must have just like warmed up the fires because it's taken a while for me to get my food. Maybe 10 minutes later, I see one of those dudes stumbling out doing the walk of shame. Not too sure what kind of JOs they're giving out in that joint, but they must be good because I've never got a JO that quick before in my life, man. It's myself, sure, but not by someone else, man. And anyways, not a lot going on over here. That's about it. And I wanted to just call in and
just hanging out, watching dudes, just standing in line. You went up to go get the JO, go get jacked off. That's
This is a
pretty much
fun
all
day.
Days.
Yeah, it's a fun day.
I did hear that. I think it was Johnny actually messaged me on Facebook, and he was saying that in Japan right now, bars are closed, like everything because of COVID, everything's shut down. So they started opening up speakeasies.
Oh, excellent. That's
yeah.
fun.
So you have to like know where to go. And there's all these like secret speakeasies throughout because it's a hardcore drinking culture over there.
Oh, completely. It's very like nearly English, I would say, in the hardcore. We're going.
I don't
to
think
the
they can
pub.
physically drink as much as the English because the English can drink a lot. And I don't think like the Japanese people have the stature to drink as much as the English people, but they fucking drink a ton. They drink all the time. It's definitely a drinking culture. I was blown away. Like I was like, oh my God, you guys drink way more than we do in LA.
Yeah, I think if you ever tried to take away the pub in Britain, there would be riots.
Yeah, I
Speakeasies,
don't
to
know
be
what would
sure.
happen. Well, I don't know what would happen here if they. I don't know. Yeah, that I don't think that could happen here. But apparently, Johnny was like, "Oh, and I know where all the secret speakeasies are." So I mean,
Awesome.
Tokyo is such a huge city. I bet you there's some cool ones.
Congratulate you on 800 and some odd episodes. And I don't know what to say, D, man. Good luck on 800 more, dude. I'd like to see you back here in Tokyo to visit again, dude. I promise if we go out again, I'll take you somewhere where it's not a 10-to-1 ratio. Until next time, keep it sick, keep it wrong, and lick my fucking balls.
Yeah.
Thank you there, Quenchi Sean. Yeah, we went out on his birthday. We got fucking proper fucked. Went out with a couple of his mates and everybody. I mean, there were some people that were from Japan, but then there were like all these other like expatriates, and we just like got proper fucked up and hung out. But really cool guy. And thanks for listening, man. All these years, and I do plan to make it back to Tokyo. That was one country I recommend everybody should go check out.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go.
Yeah, on the bucket list. It was always one of the ones that was on my list because I had never really been to any Asian countries. Blown away by Japan. I mean, we were planning on going to like Osaka and all these other cities. We just stayed like the whole, I don't know, 14 days in Tokyo because Tokyo is that much fun.
Yeah, I'd love to go. I've always wanted to go. It seems like so. It's kind of like, when you go to Greece and it's all in an alien language and it feels like you're out of place. But I imagine it's like that, but Asian.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is weird. You'd think too that in Tokyo they'd be a little more like amenable to like English people or English speaking people. And they are at like certain major train stations, but the rest of the country, it's like you kind of have to figure it out.
Good. I like
It
that.
was, I highly recommend it. I had a blast and I will definitely be coming back and we'll be hitting you up, Sean.
He's a cool guy.
People, thanks for calling the Signal Hotline. 323-522-4032 is that number. I always love to hear from people. We have been getting some great calls lately, actually. Finally here, if you've listened to 800 episodes of the show, that means you're really into it, which means you probably want more than just one show a week. So if you sign up for the Patreon, you pretty much get 2 shows. It's like 2 shows worth of content. And then more if you pay a little bit more, but for just $5 a month, you get an extra story, you get phone calls, you get our outtakes. I think the news story this week was about a guy who hatched a very harebrained, extremely violent plot to win his ex back. Didn't go as smoothly as you think it would.
These
For
last
the
2 outtakes,
yeah.
I was about to say with Jojo. Jojo has been on an adventure. Like, what is going on with Jojo? These last 2 outtakes have been fucking amazing.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but I was talking about our last weekend. I was in Phoenix. I was talking about the trip to Phoenix. And Jojo had an experience with someone who I just want to say was more than a woman, kind of like the Bee Gees song.
Yeah.
She was more than a woman to Jojo. And so I tell that in the outtakes. That's all just for $5. And if you want to spend $5 more, you get the Sick and Wrong news segment. This week we were talking about Nirvana Baby suing the band for child porn. And the Michigan parents who were ordered to pay $30,000 to their son, their fucking ingrate of a son, because they threw out his porn.
To their son, John Steele.
I thought for sure it was John Steele. And finally, at the $10 level too, you get the bonus Sick and Wrong mini-sode Overkill, which Kate did about Bobby Beausoleil this weekend, who, if you think about it, might have been programmed by Manson to kill that drug dealer.
He wasn't, but
Hypno-Programmed by Manson.
Hypno-Toad. But yeah, last of the Manson month. I love Bobby Beausoleil. I've talked to Bobby Beausoleil in a roundabout way. Well, I have.
Kate supports Bobby's release.
I do. I'm very behind Bobby Beausoleil gaining his freedom. But Gavin won't.
Angeline might.
Angeline, Team Pink.
I think he was programmed. I think he was a hypno assassin.
Hypno.
People go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/sick and wrong. We do appreciate it. Also, we got a T Public store. It's not a new store, but we do have some new designs up there. Go to sickandwrongpodcast.com/shop. Click on the picture of the Pope. There's a whole like array of Sick and Wrong merchandise that you can buy. It's a good gift for an anniversary. Like, you know, when
Very
you
romantic.
yeah, like when you're having an anniversary with your loved one, you're always kind of like, what do I get? It's not like a birthday, so I don't want to go too crazy getting a birthday gift. Let me just get something from a podcast about bukkake and shit stories that I love that you'll love. It's almost a gift that keeps on giving. So just go to the T Public store and go get your wife a special Sick and Wrong gift on your anniversary. Finally, here's Sick and Wrong Song of the Week. I gotta say I'm gutted to hear this.
Same.
But Charlie Watts, Rolling Stones drummer, and the band's irreplaceable heartbeat, I have to say, died at age 80 this past week.
And
Gutted
that's
to
it.
hear that.
That's it for the Stones now. There will be no more Rolling Stones at all.
It's not the same.
It's the beginning of the end for them.
Yeah. Watts' publicist confirmed his death in his statements. With immense sadness that we announced the death of our beloved Charlie Watts. He passed away peacefully in a London hospital on Tuesday, surrounded by his family. The statement referred to Watts as one of the greatest drummers of his generation.
Oh,
I would say
totally.
so. I would say
Yeah.
so for sure. You know, his death came several weeks after the Stones announced that he wasn't going to be able to go on tour with them. Their no filter tour of U.S. stadiums. I don't know if a couple of friends of mine are going to that, and I was like, I don't know if I'll check that out.
It's always been too costly for me to ever go. I would take me back to the 1970s on like the Some Girls tour. Fuck yeah, I would have paid any amount of money to go see that. But like now, I mean, I wouldn't pay that amount of money to see any band.
Well, they're also like
not even John
bunch
Fogerty.
of octogenarians like shaking about on stage. It's almost like, I don't know, from the nosebleed seats that I would have, they're just
Exactly.
like, it look like a bunch of midgets with Parkinson's or something. I don't know if I'd really into
I
it.
wish the nonce had died first instead of Charlie. The nonce deserves to die first. Poor
I know you
Charlie.
mentioned
He
that.
was the nicest one.
Do you think the band's going to keep touring?
No, that's it. They said that if they had Mick, Keith, and Charlie all had a pact, whichever one of them goes first, the band is over. They can't go without Charlie. They can't go without Keith. They can't go without Mick. So that's why this is
bet
even
they keep doing it.
sadder.
Because
I don't
they
think
already had a
will.
replacement drummer for this tour.
Mick, yeah, but he's dead now. It's a bit fucking different. I think Mick might go on and do something. He's always marched to the beat of his own drum. But I think Keith will be quite happy to just go and live the life.
Yeah, God, who knows how old Keith? I'm thinking Keith's going to be like 280 years old before he kicks it.
Keith will be the last. But I mean, Mick Jagger is in supreme health. He's been eating, like, he's had a macrobiotic diet since the 1970s, and he does ballet every fucking day. I think he might.
Ballet? Does he?
Does ballet, yeah. I think
I
he
didn't
might
know that.
just keep himself spry until the bitter end.
I bet they keep touring. I bet they get a replacement drummer and they keep going.
Well, I hope they
So
don't.
much money. So much money there.
I like to think that
But-
their pact meant something.
Charlie Watts drummed on so many amazing songs. I mean, just so many incredible songs. One of the greatest drummers. We're going to play one from one of my favorite songs. I know it's overplayed. I know it's one of their most popular hits, but it's from Beggar's Banquet, and it's apropos. Not only does it highlight Charlie's skills as a drummer, but this song actually is topical for this show because the Rolling Stones were recording Beggar's Banquet in 1968 when Robert Kennedy was shot. And so there's a lyric, I'm sure everybody knows what I'm about to say. There's a lyric in Sympathy for the Devil that was changed from, quote, I shouted out who killed John Kennedy to I shouted out who killed the Kennedys after RFK was shot. So he kind of was like, you know what? They both died. Got to mention both. Anyway, we're gonna end the show here with "Sympathy for the Devil" by the Rolling Stones, one of my favorite songs. It's from the opening track on their 1968 record, "Beggar's Banquet." Rest in peace, Charlie Watts. You will be missed.
Yeah.
People will be back next week with episode 807. Till then, take it sleazy.
Hi, John.
It's
Thanks,
probably
John.
one of the most popular Stone songs, but such a great fucking song.
Yeah, it's a great fucking song. They wrote a lot of great fucking songs.
I mean, they wrote pretty much, almost every song that they've done is an amazing song.
Fucking love the Stones.
Yeah, "Sympathy" is such a great song. We were gonna originally play "Tumblin' Dice,"
Love
which
that song.
astute listeners out there might know that from Exile. Such a great that I would say all in all, Exile is my favorite record.
I think it's generally. I actually really like Some Girls. I think it's tied always. 'Cause I
Some
just
Girls
love
are a great
soul.
record, too.
Some Girls is fucking great, and I just really like all the songs. But I like Exile because that's got a lot of my favorite Keith written songs on it.
Yeah, "Turd on the Run."
I don't know.
Isn't that on that? It's good. I think that's on Exile. That's great.
Yeah,
"Ventilator
that's on Exile.
Blues."
Ventilator Blues. That's the song I wanted you to play because Charlie could never they played that song live once and then Charlie vetoed it forever because he can't replicate his drum. So but it's just too long. Nobody's gonna sit and listen to like that blues song for like 8 minutes after the end of the show.
Yeah, no, I mean it is a long one, but fucking "Sympathy" is like a 6-minute song. I usually never play songs that long, but it's a tribute to Charlie.
It's tribute to Charlie and it fits in with the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it fits in because he changed it to shout it out who killed the Kennedys. I never knew that it was like who killed John Kennedy.
I was just thinking if Charlie hadn't died, we could have played a Dead Kennedys song.
Oh yeah, actually we probably could have.
Yeah, but that's only if Charlie hadn't have died.
Have to do a tribute to Charlie.
No one will be.
So Bill Wyman's not in the band anymore?
Bill Wyman has not been in the band since like the 80s.
Is that when they kicked him out?
Fuck yeah. And then they denounced
Oh,
him.
and then Ronnie came in, yeah.
Yeah, bloody no, Bill was the bassist.
Bill's a bassist, yeah.
They
wait.
fucking Ronnie has been in the band since probably when did Ronnie come in?
Was he on
80s,
Some Girls?
mid-80s.
Was he on Undercover?
He's definitely on Undercover. I'm not sure about Some Girls. No, is he on
It
Some
might be on
Girls?
Emotional Rescue. That's a great record.
There's always what's the name of the blonde-haired rhythm guitarist and who was the rhythm guitarist for Ronnie? I always liked him. But Bill, no, when he fucking pretty much married his
So what has
groomed
Bill
bride.
Wyman been doing? Does he just live off the royalties?
Yeah, he just lives off the royalties and fucking I'm pretty sure he released a book and fuck him. Walden's asking for branded Sick and
We should totally make Sick and Wrong branded tinfoil hats. I think I'm gonna do that.
That would be a good like Halloween costume.
That'd be fucking funny.
If like
I should
50
do
of
that.
us, 50 of us all showed up in with Sick and Wrong tinfoil hats on. The tinfoil hat brigade is here.
That would be really funny.
Yeah,
I should probably do that.
They eat a lot of meat in Japan, don't they? I remember you telling me that.
Oh my god. When we were in Japan, I remember so there's these places called izakayas. These izakayas are amazing. I don't know if you could have these in England. Do they have these in England? Do they have izakayas there?
I don't think so. What are they?
You ever heard of that? So they're kind of like these bar sort of restaurants / bars where you go with like your group, you get a booth. They have curtains that you can close a curtain if you wanted to. So you're in this like little booth and it's all you can eat, all you can drink for like $30.
No, I wish. Well, we have buffet restaurants, but we don't have stuff like that where you can just like close the curtains and ignore everyone.
And then the waitress comes over and she just keeps filling your beers and bringing you as much food as you want for $30. There's no way.
Cheap.
There's no way that could ever happen in this country because we are way too fat and we would eat everything. Like, could you imagine like the fucking American gastropods being like, wash my back with a rag and a stick?
I'm going to the izakaya.
Yeah, no, they would lose all their money.
I
But
would
it's
get
like-
fucking wasted in one of them. It's like
I-
30
I
quid. All you can
did.
eat and drink.
The
Yeah.
problem is you need to go with someone who can speak Japanese, because if I went by myself, I wouldn't know. First of all, you can't communicate. Second, you don't know. Like, you look at the menu, you don't know what it is. So it's like, I was there with Johnny, and we're like hanging out. We're like, you can get beer, that's fine. But when you look at the menu, you're just like, I remember one time I looked at this and I was just like, oh, this looks like ahi tuna. I was like, I'll get that. And so she was writing it down. And then Johnny's like, no, don't get that. I was like, why? What do you mean? He goes, it's raw horse meat.
Ew.
Like, what the fuck? That's like a delicacy there. Raw horse meat.
I don't want to eat Black Beauty.
Yeah, it's fucking gross. I didn't know. I mean, I wouldn't. It looked like.
Why didn't you
fucking
use
ahi
the
tuna to
Google
me.
app on your phone, the Google Translate app on your phone?
I was using that. I don't know why. I don't
Oh,
know
right.
why I wasn't using that. I was using that but sometimes it doesn't work. And it's kind of it's touch
It's
and
hit
go
or
with that
miss.
thing.
Yeah, you would have to go with someone. And
But there is, like, a page of sushi, so you can get as much sushi as you fucking want, and
Fuck
they
yeah.
just keep bringing you fucking Sapporos on tap. So we got fucking loaded,
I
and you
want
could
that
sit there for like
now.
2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah, that's what I want.
They
right
don't kick
now.
you out. Like in America, there's a time limit. If you go to a buffet, you're not there more than an hour. They're gonna kick you out.
Seriously.
Oh yeah. They definitely have. They
It's
definitely
been
do.
so long since I've been to like a buffet type thing like that. I don't think they have a time
What?
limit.
Z saying to Dubai, there's all you can eat and drink, and there's vegan places too.
Yeah, but then you got to go to Dubai. But
You know, it's kind of funny in Japan. Like, when I remember, I was like sitting there trying to look at the one word I learned was niku, which
That-
means meat. So when I would be like, no niku, like, you go to these restaurants and they give you like it's a menu. There's no English on it, but there's pictures. And I'd be like, no niku. And I'd point to something, and the girl would just look at me like puzzled and be like, oh, niku. It's just like, okay, so you just have nothing without meat in it.
shit.
So it's not just fish with everything, it's meat. They love meat.
Yeah, I
they
never
do love
would have
fish
thought
too.
that unless you'd have ever told me. I just thought it would
Well,
be
Kobe
all
beef.
Kobe beef and all that, but I just would have thought because of the size, it just would have all been fish. It's probably like a real stereotypical
I
thing.
thought so too, but it's like chicken, meat. They just love meat. They do eat a lot of fish. I mean, I gotta say, I eat sushi almost every day. The
I
one
fuck
thing
over
that
there.
the one thing that blew my mind about that place is the 7-Elevens.
I've seen videos of the 7-Elevens. Yeah, I want to go
And
there.
like,
And
I
also
mean-
all the vending machines and all that shit as well.
There's the vending machines. I think they kind of toned down a bit. I mean, you saw them. They're actually, no, I gotta take it back. They did. Like, you go to the train
can-
station, you get like hot soup from a vending machine.
Yeah, you can get anything at the vending
Which is
machines.
crazy.
You can walk to them in random places.
But they weren't like as pervasive as I thought they would be. In certain areas they were, but not mostly. But yeah, the 7-Elevens, like you go to 7-Eleven here, and it's fucking gross. Like, it's gross. It's pretty sketchy. You wouldn't eat any of that food that I don't even know if it's real meat. I don't even know what it is. It's an unidentifiable food product.
Oh, you're talking about the hot dogs and
Yeah.
Well, I
fucking
mean,
gross.
a hot dog's fake anyways. A hot dog is like the scrapings off the abattoir floor. Tastes good
Yeah, it's
though.
like it's miscellaneous.
I freaking miss
gross.
hot dogs.
But in Japan, like the 7-Elevens have like real food. I mean, I would sometimes just eat there rather than going out.
Yeah, I really want to go on holiday right now, and I really want some sushi, and I really want some beer. I want all those
Well,
things.
I want to go to Japan right now.
Yeah, same.
That sucks. Anyway, people, it's like 5 in the fucking morning over here. Good night, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, good day to everyone on this side
Yeah.
of the pond. For it is the daytime here, David.
It is. It's like fucking like what, 3
No, it's like
or 1?
20 to 1.
That's 1 to 1. All right.
Mm.
Truth is.